More than 100 years ago, humanity achieved what had once seemed impossible, the mastery of space teleportation. With this breakthrough came the creation of the first spatial portal. But what awaited them on the other side was not just empty space or distant stars, it was an entirely new world. A realm filled with unknown mysteries and unimaginable dangers. To their astonishment, this new dimension was teeming with bizarre, otherworldly creatures, towering beasts and monstrous predators that defied all known classifications. The advanced weapons that mankind had developed over centuries proved utterly useless in this terrifying new landscape. And as it turned out, the portal they had opened could not be closed. Humanity was trapped, no longer the dominant force, but rather the hunted, sitting at the very bottom of the food chain. At first, people struggled to survive, trying desperately to avoid becoming prey for the powerful creatures that now surrounded them. But as with any species faced with extinction, adaptation began. Everything changed when one man dared to do the unthinkable. He consumed the flesh of an alien beast. His body underwent a strange transformation, sparking a genetic evolution that granted him powers previously unknown to humankind. This discovery led to a new survival strategy, hunting these monsters, capturing their souls, and merging them with human bodies. With every successful fusion, people grew stronger. Over the course of a century, this brutal evolution reshaped humanity. Through soul merging and genetic mutation, some individuals became so powerful that they were worshipped as gods. In this unforgiving world, where only the strong survived and the weak perished, the era of divine evolution had begun. This is the world known today as the refuge of the gods. Within this perilous realm lives a young man named Hansen. Though his powers are still dormant, his life is already marked by conflict. It has only been a month since he arrived at one of the shelters, known as vaults, but in that short time, he has made enemies. His offense? Claiming the souls of beasts that others had marked for themselves, breaking the unspoken rules of survival among the hunters. To some, his actions are disgraceful, an act deserving of death. But here, morality is a luxury. In the refuge of the gods, survival is the only law. Kill or be killed. Evolve or be consumed. And for Hansen, the stakes are simple. He will either gain everything or lose everything. For him, it truly is a matter of life and death. A month ago, on his 18th birthday, Hansen arrived at the steel armor shelter, one of the most renowned of the vaults. He entered through a massive tunnel, full of hope that this place would be the beginning of a new chapter in his life. But fate had other plans. Hansen had not come here willingly. His father had died suddenly. His mother, plagued by illness, was unable to work. His sister needed money for her education. Left with no other option, Hansen became the sole provider for his family. The vaults, dangerous as they were, offered the only path forward. As he wandered through the shelter, Hansen noticed a man clad in magnificent armor forged from the spirit of a beast. The sight filled him with envy and ambition. Someday, he thought, he too would wear such armor. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his left eye, an eye that had always troubled him. The agony intensified, leaving him confused and alarmed. As he walked, unaware of what lay ahead, he turned into an alley, and there, looming before him, was a massive monster, its presence blocking his path. Hansen froze. A realization struck him, the pain in his eye might be linked to this beast. Rage flared within him. He cursed the monster for daring to intrude into the city, furious at its audacity. Without hesitation, Hansen drew his sword. He launched himself forward in a single, decisive motion, driving his warblade with all his strength and precision toward the creature. The monster, unaware of the ambush, did not react in time. Hansen's blade found its mark. A roar of pain erupted from the beast, startling the onlookers. To their shock, the young man had struck the monster in the rear. Thus begins the journey of Hansen, a young warrior carving his path through a world ruled by evolution, conflict, and the relentless pursuit of power. Just moments ago, Hansen had struck what he believed was a monstrous threat. But as the energy fog cleared, what stood before him was not a beast at all. It was a woman, a young woman glaring at him with burning fury. He had stabbed her. Right in the soft spot. Shock flooded Hansen's face as he looked at the place his blade had struck. The realization hit him hard. He had driven his sword into a person, specifically, into a woman's backside. Gasps rippled through the bystanders. Whispers turned into an audible uproar as everyone recognized who the woman was, Xuan, the most influential woman in the entire steel armor shelter. A heavy silence fell for a moment, broken by snickers and bursts of restrained laughter. The gathered hunters couldn't help but mock the young man. It was obvious he had no idea that some elite hunters possessed the ability to transform into beasts. A mistake like this could cost him everything. Xuan slowly turned toward him, her eyes blazing with fury. With a voice sharp as steel, she demanded to know just what he thought he was doing. Her words thundered through the crowd, leaving no doubt that this was no ordinary reprimand. This was a declaration of war. Within moments, powerful hunters surrounded Hansen. Their mocking jeers quickly turned to threats. One of them kicked him to his knees, and the message was clear: he wouldn't walk away from this easily. Xuan stepped forward and made her stance known: anyone who dared to help Hansen would be considered her enemy. Her authority in the steel armor shelter was absolute. The angry hunters leaned over Hansen, demanding an explanation for what he had done. To them, he had attacked their goddess. Hansen, trembling and clutching his head, was overwhelmed with horror. The reality of what had happened finally sank in. This can't be real, he thought. This has to be a nightmare. But there was no waking up. Days later, Hansen found himself outside the steel armor shelter, crouched beside a rocky mountain stream. He was dissecting the carcass of a massive insect, yet another in a long line of kills. His movements were clean, practiced, and efficient. In mere seconds, he stripped the beetle of its hard outer shell and began eating the flesh within. This was already the 13th such insect he had consumed. The system interface informed him that he had gained 10 random gene points. But once again, there was no beast soul. Hansen groaned in frustration. Despite the number of creatures he'd eaten, his evolution had stalled. He hadn't passed the first stage of transformation, nor had he received a proper soul. If things continued like this, he would never reach the rank he so desperately sought. Despair weighed heavily on him. He clutched his head, his mind spiraling. The truth was undeniable: the meat of low-level creatures held little value in the process of genetic evolution. A month had passed since he entered the steel armor shelter, yet he still hadn't undergone a single physical renewal. He had even considered hunting stronger monsters. But the last time he tried, he barely escaped with his life. That memory haunted him. Blooded and broken, he had limped back to the shelter to heal. The wounds had closed, but his confidence hadn't. Perhaps, he thought, joining a group of more experienced hunters would increase his chances of success. But before he could make a decision, it happened again. The familiar, stabbing pain returned to his left eye. It was always the same: every time a powerful beast was near, the pain signaled its presence. Darkness around him gave way to a strange, golden glow. The light grew stronger, slowly approaching. Hansen's pulse quickened. What kind of creature radiated such brilliance? Then he saw it, a massive black beetle, unlike any insect he'd encountered. Its size and aura were overwhelming. The system didn't recognize its genetic origins. Hansen knew immediately, this wasn't just another ordinary bug. Holding his breath, Hansen dropped into hiding. His heart pounded. As the creature crept closer, illuminating the entire forest path in golden light, he prepared to strike. With a burst of speed, Hansen leapt from the shadows. He lunged forward and plunged his combat blade into the beast's shell with all his strength. The system chimed. Congratulations! Black divine blood beetle killed. Soul of a divine blood beast obtained. Hansen froze, stunned. A divine blood beast? He could hardly believe it. Insects didn't yield souls of that class, at least, they weren't supposed to. There were 4 known beast classifications: normal, primitive, mutant, and divine blood. The last was the rarest and most sought after. Divine blood creatures were considered near mythical, and even in a place as dangerous as the steel armor shelter, such kills were incredibly rare. Countable on one hand. Shaking with anticipation, Hansen opened his status profile. It was true. He had received armor, a soulbound gift from an unknown divine blood black beetle. In a world where survival meant becoming something more than human, Hansen had just taken his first step toward true evolution. Hansen couldn't believe it. His long-awaited wish had come true far sooner than he had ever imagined. The body of the slain black beetle began to glow intensely. A brilliant column of energy surged out from the corpse, racing toward him at an incredible speed. As it reached him, the beam burst into countless glowing tendrils, each one weaving through the air like serpents made of light. They encircled him, drawing closer until they touched his body. In the next instant, the tendrils wrapped tightly around him, cocooning him in luminous coils. The sensation was warm and strangely pleasant. Then came the transformation. Before his eyes, his body was engulfed in radiant, golden armor. Plates of shimmering divine steel formed over his skin, locking into place like living metal. Within seconds, Hansen was completely transformed, no longer just a man, but a warrior cloaked in magnificent divine beast armor. He leapt into the air, amazed at how light and agile he felt despite the armor's heavy appearance. The strength, the fluidity, everything about it was beyond anything he had ever experienced. This was far more advanced than the primitive armor worn by hunters in the steel armor shelter. Hansen couldn't believe it. For so long, he had only admired such equipment from afar, jealous of those strong enough to claim it. And now, he was wearing it himself. Eager to test its power, Hansen approached a massive boulder. He raised his arm and struck. The rock exploded into fragments with a single hit. He stood in awe of his own strength, heart pounding with excitement. Later, back in his room at the steel armor shelter, Hansen sat in front of a pot of boiling soup. Though the meat of slain monsters tasted awful, he considered wasting it a crime. Resources in this world were precious beyond measure. He activated his holographic interface. To his astonishment, the meat from the divine black beetle had granted him 6 divine gene points, far more than he'd hoped for. He smiled. With a bowl of soup made from such a powerful beast, his physical strength would surely continue to grow. As he stirred the broth, his attention was drawn to something inside the beetle's remains, an object unlike any he'd seen. Nestled within the remains was a small, radiant orb. It pulsed with mysterious light. This wasn't part of the insect's anatomy. Curious, Hansen examined it closely. It looked almost alive. Beside him, in a reinforced cage, was a captured alien monster. Hansen assumed it was still asleep. But he was wrong. Without warning, a wet squelch echoed through the room. In a flash, the creature shot out its long tongue and snatched the glowing orb from Hansen's hand. Startled and furious, Hansen rushed to the cage and shook it violently. "Give it back," he shouted. But the monster ignored him. It swallowed the orb whole. Then, silence. For a moment, Hansen wondered if the creature had just killed itself. But his thoughts were cut off as the alien began to convulse violently. A bright green glow seeped from beneath its skin. Its body swelled rapidly, pressing against the iron bars of the cage. The metal groaned, then cracked. With a bone-chilling roar, the creature shattered the cage and charged at Hansen. Reacting on instinct, Hansen drew his blade. The clash was short but brutal. In a final desperate move, Hansen struck with all his strength. The blade sank deep, and the creature collapsed with a savage cry. Panting, Hansen stood over the twitching corpse, shaken from the near-death encounter. A system prompt flashed: primitive green lizard killed. Soul not acquired. Flesh and blood may grant a random increase in primitive genes, 1 to 10 points. Hansen frowned. A primitive class beast? That didn't make sense. Before consuming the orb, the monster had been far weaker. The pearl must have caused it to evolve rapidly. That much was clear. Curious and cautious, Hansen dissected the body, retrieving the glowing orb from within. He turned it over in his hand, deep in thought. If it could mutate a low-tier creature into a formidable threat in mere seconds, what could it do to him? Resolved, he brought the pearl to his lips. This might be the catalyst he needed to finally rise to power. Elsewhere, within the steel armor shelter, a heated family argument was unfolding. Hansen's mother and her daughter sat across from discontented relatives. Tension filled the room. The dispute centered around a bitter topic: the inheritance left behind by the previous generation. All of it had ended up in the hands of Hansen's mother. And not everyone was happy about that. Back at Hansen's family home, the atmosphere had grown tense. His relatives had gathered, pressing his mother to return their supposed share of the inheritance. They claimed that if she did so, she would be allowed to stay in the house alone with her daughter. Hansen's second uncle stepped forward, arguing that she had benefited from the house long enough. Now, it was time to divide the property fairly among all the heirs. The first uncle chimed in full agreement, his tone bitter. He complained that his family had received absolutely nothing from the inheritance, even though they had just as much right to it. One of the women present made a calculated offer. She stated that the house was worth 3 million and proposed giving each party 1 million, leaving the house for herself. But Mama Hansen's voice trembled as she explained that they didn't have 2 million. They were poor. If the house were sold, she and the children would be left homeless. The uncle's face twisted with frustration. He snapped back that she wasn't the only one with problems. His children, unlike hers, hadn't even received an education. Now he needed money, desperately. Realizing the conversation was going nowhere, the man gave her an ultimatum: either sell the house or be taken to court. With that, the relatives left. Mama Hansen sat silently on the porch, her thoughts spiraling in despair. She stared at the worn floorboards, her heart heavy. Hansen was furious. How dare they come and try to take the old house, his father's house, from them? He recalled the time when his father had helped those very same relatives, paying off their million-dollar debts. And now they had the audacity to demand more. Mama Hansen sat with tears streaking down her cheeks. Her husband had died in vain, she thought, after falling out with the Star Group. And now, she couldn't even protect the home he left behind. Her sense of helplessness crushed her. But Hansen gently placed a hand on her shoulder. He told her not to worry. He had already contacted a lawyer, a professional who promised to defend them. The reassurance gave her a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't lose their home after all. Still, Hansen was seething inside. He was furious that his relatives would stoop so low as to harass his mother and sister. One way or another, he vowed, they would be held accountable. Meanwhile, at Star World Station, the transport hub linked to the steel armor shelter, people bustled through glass corridors. Loudspeakers echoed announcements through the air. The president has completed the third evolution and has entered the fourth space of God's refuge, approaching the realm of a demigod. Hansen stood among the crowd, his mood foul. He had achieved nothing. He was still struggling just to survive, while others were soaring to unimaginable heights. Another announcement came through, a genius has entered the second space, with a divine gene mutation score of 100. Hansen couldn't believe it. 100 points? That was unheard of. Sitting inside a carriage, he stared out the window as another voice declared, yesterday, a council member displayed extraordinary courage. After tracking a demigod warrior, he engaged in an uneven battle and emerged victorious, showcasing flawless combat technique. It was too much. Hansen felt defeated, like fate itself was mocking him. Despite his best efforts, success always seemed out of reach. Still, he tried to shake off the self-pity. He had the crystal now, and with it, a chance. Maybe he wouldn't reach 100 divine gene points. That was a dream too distant. But he still had hope in the original gene mutation. That, at least, was within reach. His goal was clear, head to the Valley of the Winds. There, he would hunt basic alien monsters. He had no choice. He needed to earn money, and fast. 2 million credits to save the house. Tears welled in his eyes. The burden weighed heavily on him. But he clenched his fists. He had no time to cry. He had to fight. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by a sharp, echoing sound. He looked up. In the sky above, a wind mantis streaked toward him at high speed. A smile tugged at Hansen's lips. He was glad he spotted it first. These creatures were notoriously hard to detect. Though classified as primitive-level beasts, they possessed terrifying speed. Fortunately, their defense was poor, making them ideal targets. Hansen sprang into action. He lunged forward, ready to end the fight quickly. He figured the creature's blood alone would be enough to aid his next step forward. But the wind mantis acted oddly. Instead of fleeing like others of its kind, it hovered above him, then suddenly flared out its legs and dove straight at him in an aggressive, frenzied attack. Hansen's eyes widened. This wasn't normal. Before he could react, the mantis struck. Hard. Each blow from the wind mantis's claws slammed into Hansen's armor with jarring force, momentarily knocking him off balance. As he stumbled back, a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. Had he underestimated the creature? Its speed was far greater than he had anticipated, and the strength behind its strikes caught him completely off guard. Breathing heavily, Hansen glanced down at his armor, expecting to see cracks or at least dents. But to his amazement, the surface was still flawless. He couldn't believe it. The armor hadn't taken a scratch. Relief washed over him, quickly replaced by growing confidence. If this suit could withstand an assault like that, then perhaps he truly was ready to reach new heights in battle. As he steadied himself, a system notification popped up in front of his eyes. Primitive-level wind mantis eliminated. Hunt successful. That confirmation only fueled his rising determination. He raised his eyes to the sky and froze. Dozens more wind mantises now hovered above him. They had been drawn by the battle. Their wings shimmered in the light, creating a haunting hum as they swarmed the area. But Hansen stood his ground. He believed in the armor now. Death no longer felt like an immediate threat. Even mutated beasts wouldn't scare him with this kind of protection. One by one, the mantises dove at him, claws flashing. But their strikes bounced off harmlessly. His defense held strong. Drawing his combat sword, Hansen unleashed a whirlwind of attacks. His movements were fluid, his strikes precise. Blade met kitten with deadly efficiency as mantis after mantis fell. More system messages arrived. Kill confirmed. Primitive level wind mantis defeated. Hunt successful. He stopped counting after the 10th kill. There were too many. A veritable storm of wings and limbs circled around him, yet none could touch him. Fueled by adrenaline and confidence, Hansen charged into the insect horde without hesitation. At the entrance to the Valley of the Wandering Winds, a newcomer cautiously stepped forward. His name was Shirao, the son of wealthy parents. He was new to this steel-armored refuge and knew no one here. But he was content. Serving under the beautiful squad leader Shuan was enough for him. Now, hoping to impress her, Shirao had entered the valley in search of a mutant creature that could earn him a reward. He moved quietly through the dense thickets, eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of a rare beast. Eventually, he stumbled into a large clearing and froze. There were no monsters. Just silence and the heavy scent of blood. Looking around, he muttered, "Where did all the wind mantises go?" The grass was stained red. Trails of blood crisscrossed the field. Whatever had happened here, it was recent. Shirao examined the battlefield carefully. From the amount of blood and the number of fallen creatures, he assumed a large group had hunted here. But then he saw him. In the middle of the clearing stood a single figure, Hansen, surrounded by a mountain of mangled wind mantis corpses. Shirao's eyes widened. His mind refused to believe what he was seeing. Was this guy alone? He studied Hansen more closely. The man stood confidently in powerful armor, calm and unharmed, amidst dozens of fallen monsters. The scene was surreal. Did you really do this alone? Shirao finally asked, still in disbelief. Or did you have help? Because I just can't imagine one person handling all this. Hansen turned to face him, calm and straightforward. I'll sell them to you. 1,000 each, he said. Shirao blinked. That was a solid offer. More than fair. And he'd get far more value than he expected. Still stunned, Shirao confirmed, "You're really selling them for 1,000 each." Hansen nodded. Without hesitation, Shirao pulled out a thick wallet. "I'll pay more," he said quickly. "And if you find anything else, anything, I want to buy it." It was clear. Shirao wasn't just looking to buy. He was proposing a long-term business relationship. Hansen agreed. "Tell me your name and your room number. I'll let you know if I find anything you can use," Hansen said, slipping back into a businesslike tone. Shirao did exactly that. Then, in return, he asked, "What's your name? What room are you in?" But Hansen didn't answer. Instead, he raised a hand in farewell, turned around, and walked away. "I'll see you when I've got something," he called over his shoulder. Shirao waved goodbye, grinning. "I'll call you money, brother," he shouted. "I'll be waiting for your next visit." After clearing the skies of wind mantises, Hansen set his sights on tougher prey. It was time to raise his hunting level. His next target, the copper-toothed wolves, beasts far more valuable than mere insects. As soon as Hansen approached their lair, the wolves noticed his presence. A feral growl echoed across the field, and in an instant, the pack lunged at him. Hansen didn't flinch. His armor burst with radiant light as he charged directly into the pack. Dozens of snarling predators surrounded him, but he met them head-on, slashing and striking with precision. Each blow landed cleanly, cutting through fur and muscle. The system chimed, "Primitive copper-toothed wolf eliminated. Hunt successful. No soul absorbed." Hansen narrowed his eyes. That wasn't what he wanted. Last time, he had killed all the wind mantises on instinct. This time, he had a plan. He allowed one of the wolves to live just long enough. He fed the beast a bee soul pearl, then quickly finished it off. Soul absorbed, the system reported. Soul type, weapon enhancement. A rush of energy erupted from the creature's corpse, swirling through the air like a glowing mist before sinking into Hansen's palm. He had done it. The soul had been successfully captured. Satisfied with the result, Hansen began his journey back to the Steelgate shelter. Behind him, he dragged his prize, bound and secured. But something felt off. As he neared the gates, a thunder of hooves echoed in the distance. A large group of riders approached fast. It was the retinue of the Divine Sun. Hansen immediately recognized them. Their numbers were vast, and their presence signaled something significant was about to unfold. At the center of the procession was Chinsuan, the Divine Sun himself, a proud, temperamental man with a cruel streak. He was also Shuan suitor and didn't tolerate disrespect. The moment Chinsuan saw Hansen, he sneered. The boy's calm, indifferent gaze angered him. Without warning, Chinsuan lashed out with his whip. The strike landed hard against Hansen's side, sending a jolt of pain through his body. How dare you sell primitive creatures so brazenly? Chinsuan roared, his voice dripping with disdain. Hansen clutched his side, the pain flaring. He glared back, thinking to himself that the man before him was clearly unstable, possibly even deranged. Around them, other hunters began to whisper. That's the guy who stabbed Shuan in the butt before, right? One murmured. The crowd stirred with recognition. Chinsuan raised his voice for all to hear. Anyone who trades or associates with this man will regret it. Mark my words. One passing hunter sneered. You're lucky we're in a rush. Next time, I'll beat the hell out of you. Hansen said nothing, silently labeling them all as lunatics. He knew what he had to do. He needed more power. Fast. With the soul crystal in hand, he hurried back to his room in the steel armor hideout. There, he locked his captured beast in a reinforced cage. He studied the creature. Its fur looked like polished metal, typical of a mutated copper-toothed wolf. But something was strange. This one had a different coloration and lacked the same strength. Why the difference? Hansen considered the idea that evolution, whether primitive or mutated, might simply be too slow. He needed a faster path to growth. Before he could ponder further, voices drifted in from the room next door. He paused, then moved quietly to listen. What he heard made his blood stir. A conversation between two men revealed that 3 major clans had gathered near the mountain ridge. The reason? A divine-blooded beast had been spotted. Hansen's heart pounded. This was a rare opportunity. A creature with divine blood could change everything. Without a second's hesitation, he rushed toward the mountain slope. He climbed quickly, lungs burning, hoping he wasn't too late. When he finally reached the summit, he crouched, catching his breath, then looked out into the valley below. A massive battle was already underway. Chinsuan barked orders, and his hunters formed a tight battle line. Slowly, they advanced toward the target. Chinsuan, mounted on a powerful beast of his own, ordered his men to circle from the opposite side. His strategy was careful and calculated. But the creature they faced was a monster of myth. With a massive 2-handed axe, the divine-blooded beast towered above the battlefield. Each swing of its weapon sent hunters flying. They tried to surround it, but the beast broke their formation with ease. Bodies flew, weapons shattered. Hansen watched in awe. He had never seen anything like it. This was the power of a divine-blooded monster. The divine-blooded monster let out a terrifying scream and swung its massive axe in wild, deadly arcs. Each strike forced the hunters back, scattering them like leaves before a storm. The battlefield trembled with the sheer force of the beast's fury. Chinsuan, now on foot, charged straight toward the monster, his expression twisted with rage. "I'll destroy you this time, you wretched thing," he bellowed. The surrounding hunters watched with tense anticipation as Chinsuan closed the distance, hoping their leader could turn the tide. Meanwhile, several archers circled around to the rear of the beast, loosing a storm of arrows into its thick hide, but the divine monster stood its ground, roaring defiantly. High on the cliffs, Hansen remained still, observing every move. He clenched his fists. "This thing, it's in a completely different league from those bugs I fought before." Down below, the monster continued to wreak havoc. Hunter after hunter fell to its crushing blows. Despite their numbers, the group was failing to restrain it. Shouts of alarm echoed through the valley. The monster was breaking through the encirclement. Commanders barked orders to tighten the perimeter, but it was too late. The beast dropped to all fours and bolted through a gap, fleeing into the wilderness. At that moment, Chinsuan raised his hand, and the air shimmered with a brilliant green glow. He had no intention of letting the beast escape. With intense focus, Chinsuan began channeling soul energy into his palm, powerful and overwhelming. Everyone knew what was coming. Shuan, watching from nearby, gasped as she realized what Chinsuan was about to use, the soul of the poisonous 6-winged wasp, a divine-blooded beast soul transformed into a lethal weapon. Energy surged through the sky. Chinsuan summoned a massive spiritual arrow, aiming it with deadly precision. Drawing back the string of his spectral bow, he let it fly. A thunderous discharge rang out as the arrow shot across the battlefield. The fleeing divine beast sensed something too late. It turned just as the arrow struck. Boom! The monster let out a blood-curdling scream before crashing to the earth, its massive frame slamming into the ground with a thunderous quake. Dust and wind exploded outward. Chinsuan stepped forward, pride radiating from his posture. You dared to defy the divine sun, he sneered at the fallen creature. Now suffer the consequences. Hunters gathered, awe and admiration on their faces. They spoke in excited tones, praising Chinsuan for defeating a divine-blooded monster in a single blow. Shuan stared at him, eyes wide with admiration. Her expression softened, her feelings written clearly across her face. Chinsuan, noticing her gaze, smiled, pleased that his power had earned her affection. But then, the unexpected happened. A blinding column of energy rose from the corpse, the divine beast soul beginning to ascend. Before anyone could react, a blur of motion cut through the crowd. Something, or someone, raced past them at impossible speed. Gasps erupted. Hansen? In a flash, Hansen grabbed the divine monster's massive axe, still brimming with energy, and took off without hesitation. Chinsuan's jaw dropped. His eyes widened behind his glasses as he realized what had just occurred. The axe, the soul. Stolen. By him. By that reckless brat he barely tolerated earlier. Still disguised under the nickname Money Brother, Chinsuan was frozen in disbelief. Someone had just robbed him, in front of everyone. The crowd stood speechless. But Hansen didn't care. He dashed away, the colossal axe slung over his shoulders. His thoughts raced. This is insane. I just got a divine-blooded beast soul, and a weapon that could make me rich beyond imagination. Behind him, Chinsuan exploded in fury. After him, he roared. His face twisted with rage, he summoned his beast mount, the black brow horse, and leapt onto it in a single bound. His subordinates followed his lead, curses flying from their mouths as they chased the thief who had dared defy their leader and steal their victory. Hansen ran, pushing himself to the limit, but the axe was heavy. With each step, his breath grew shorter, his strength draining fast. Behind him, the sound of hooves and shouting grew louder. They were gaining on him. He glanced back. A horde of angry hunters was closing in, and fast. His legs burned. The divine genes in his body screamed, working overtime, but even they had limits. Chinsuan narrowed his eyes as he gave chase. How much longer can he keep this up? He growled. He's finished. Hansen knew it too. His lungs burned. His arms ached from the weight of the axe. The pain was unbearable. He stumbled. The footsteps behind him grew louder. He looked up at the sky, then closed his eyes. Mother. Sister. I'm sorry. He had risked everything. And now, it seemed, he had lost. At a critical moment, Hansen hears the voice of his deceased father, clear and resolute, asking him if he's truly going to give up. A vivid image of his father forms in his mind, questioning whether Hansen really believes that surrender is the only way out. Memories of childhood training sessions with his father come rushing back. He recalls the times his father told him that giving up was never an option, that life itself is just a game, and in games, you keep moving forward. The voice urges Hansen to climb the mountain ahead, destroy the NPC stationed at the summit, and gain 2 full levels. But Hansen hesitates. The mountain is crawling with monsters, and the path to the top seems almost suicidal. At the peak, the NPC is heavily guarded by relentless beasts. Still, the father's voice cuts through the fear. A danger is part of life, but living in fear of it is not. In a vision, Hansen sees his father ready for battle. He draws a bow, an unusual container attached to the arrow. He speaks of genetic evolution as an adventure open to all. With a single, precise shot, he fires. The arrow strikes, and the container releases a strange gas that spreads rapidly across the battlefield. Without hesitation, the father pulls out his combat blade and charges into the horde of monsters. He fights with incredible skill, cutting down enemies one by one, pushing forward until the path is cleared. Reaching the summit, he levels his weapon at the NPC, prepared to finish the mission. Turning to Hansen, the father delivers a final lesson: survival demands risk. If Hansen avoids hardship, how can he ever grow? He reminds his son that in this world, just like in reality, humans sit at the bottom of the food chain. The only path to survival is strength. He shares a hard truth: the faster Hansen becomes powerful, the better his chances. The psychological pressure is overwhelming for Hansen. His heart races. He remembers his father thinking that Hansen is still too kind, too innocent to grasp the brutality of this world, but sooner or later, he'll have to. In the game, the father can support him. But in life, Hansen must learn to stand alone. In a final, heartbreaking moment, the father grips Hansen's hand, filled with love, and drives Hansen's own sword into his chest, transferring his power to his son. Hansen screams, unable to comprehend what just happened. The system chimes in, Hansen has advanced to the next level. His father's words echo in his mind, if you want to survive, you must become stronger. That's the only secret. Realizing there's still hope, Hansen refuses to give up. He sprints forward as the hunters close in. Chinswin, one of the pursuers, jumps from his mount and yells in fury. Sword drawn, he charges at Hansen, determined to end it. But Hansen still believes in a slim chance. He activates a desperate transformation, emerging with the soul of the Blood Destroyer beast. The transformation unleashes an enormous burst of energy. A brilliant column of power shoots into the sky, forcing everyone around to freeze in shock. Even Jinsu halts his attack, stunned, whispering that what he's witnessing should be impossible. It breaks every rule of the game. Hansen completes the transformation. His body changes, turning into a massive, powerful centaur. He charges forward, gaining momentum and leaving the hunters behind. With confidence, he shouts that no hunter, no matter how experienced, can defeat a transformed soul. The hunters think he's lost his mind. Fusion between two beast souls is a dangerous, nearly suicidal experiment, especially during a chase. Xuan, observing from a distance, watches in disbelief as Hansen speeds farther away. While the hunters curse and yell that he's no longer human, one of them radios the commander, warning that continuing the pursuit is too risky. Ahead lies a mountain serpentine trail that's nearly impossible to navigate during a chase. Xian, watching the chaos unfold, can't help but feel admiration. Not only did Hansen steal the golden axe, but he also absorbed the soul of a vile creature right under the nose of the Son of God. Left with no other option, the hunters give up the chase. Frustrated, they turn to criticizing their commander, blaming him for wasting the divine beast's one-time use arrow and failing to achieve anything, while Hansen narrowly escaped death and vanished into safety. Exhausted, Hansen collapses in the forest, gasping for air. He knows that his transformed state only lasts 7 to 8 minutes. Wiping sweat from his brow, he realizes just how lucky he was. If gods had been chasing him, he wouldn't have made it out alive. Despite his successful escape, Hansen's mind is far from at ease. He's now worried about the golden axe. Unlike a beast soul, it can't be hidden easily. Worse, he has made the Son of God himself his enemy. Hansen reflects on the reality of his situation. The beast soul isn't something he can sell, but he hopes to gradually earn 2 million from the axe over time. The initial fear begins to fade, giving way to satisfaction. This single hunt wasn't just a win, it was a humiliation for 3 major families. Back at the main gates of the shelter, the hunters continue to discuss the mysterious young man who vanished into the forest. They sneer, calling him a coward, yet beneath their contempt lies a grudging recognition. He's caused them significant trouble. As if mocking their assumptions, Hansen himself now approaches the gates. He decides to set the axe aside for the time being and focus on mastering the beast's soul. But just as he arrives, a hunter stops him, announcing that a search will be conducted. Another guard scoffs, saying it's a waste of time. The kid doesn't look like a smuggler or someone worth watching. The first hunter listens, shrugs, and casually pushes Hansen aside, telling him to get lost. A small, amused smile crosses Hansen's lips. He walks past the guards, fully aware of the irony. They had no idea they'd just let the very person they were looking for walk right by them. As he strolls through the bustling streets of the shelter, he hears the chatter of locals. Word of his actions has already spread. Everyone is talking about a mysterious figure known only as a money brother, the man who tricked the Son of God and left an elite unit humiliated. The public retells the tale with excitement. They say the Son of God flew into a rage so intense he destroyed his own home. Hearing this brings Hansen genuine joy. No one knows his true identity, and everyone talks about him as the anonymous money brother. The legend is growing. Elsewhere, in a secret room, a girl named Xuan watches events unfold. Speaking to her contact, she remarks that Hansen was lucky she intervened on his behalf. If she hadn't, he might have been captured and tortured. She then presses the man for more information. She wants to know everything about this money brother and how he came to be involved. The man, Xiao, admits he doesn't know Hansen personally. They met only once, by chance in the Valley of the Winds. Xiao had bought some beasts from him and passed them on to friends. Xuan doesn't blame him, nor does she intend to punish him. Instead, she gives him a task: deliver her message to the money brother. She is prepared to pay handsomely for both the divine beast soul and his weapon. Xiao agrees eagerly, but before he leaves, Xuan warns him sternly. Their meeting must remain a secret, and this conversation is not to be spoken of again. Far from the city, deep within the mountain forests, Hansen remains on the move. The system congratulates him for hunting a primitive-level green-scaled beast and informs him that its soul has not yet been absorbed. It then offers him a choice: consume the beast's flesh to gain one original gene point. Hansen complies, eating the meat slowly as he contemplates the bounty now placed on his head. He's still concerned. He has yet to acquire the mutation gene, and the dangers are far from over. Suddenly, he senses something. Near a nearby pond, something stirs. A creature, hidden in the shadows, watches him closely. Then, there's a noise behind him. Instinctively, Hansen turns. Emerging from the darkness is a human figure. The forest is silent, and every step the stranger takes is deliberate and eerie. Under the pale light of the moon, Hansen sees a worn and exhausted young man. His clothes are shredded, and his body seems barely able to move. He's clearly been through something intense, and his sudden appearance puts Hansen on edge. Why are his clothes so torn? Why is he alone? Hansen doesn't take chances. He raises his voice, ordering the man to stop. He warns him not to go further. There are bloodthirsty crocodiles up ahead. The stranger looks up and asks where he is. Then, he demands directions to the Sanctuary of Glory. Hansen replies that he's never heard of such a place. The only shelter nearby is steel armor. The man repeats the name under his breath, confused, and then mutters that he must have wandered into the wrong sanctuary altogether. After a brief silence, his tone shifts. In a commanding voice, he demands that Hansen escort him to the Sanctuary of Glory. That crosses the line. Hansen is instantly irritated. Who is this guy to give him orders? Hansen decides for himself what he does and where he goes. He's not about to follow someone else's commands, especially not from a stranger. With controlled annoyance, Hansen tells the man to head south. If he hurries, he might make it out of the forest before nightfall. Hansen, trying to shake off the stranger, confidently declares that he's heading out on a hunt and doesn't have time for meaningless talk. He hopes the blunt dismissal will be enough to make the man leave, but he's wrong. In the very next moment, Hansen is struck violently from behind. The blow is so forceful that he's hurled several meters through the air, crashing to the ground and hitting his head hard against a rock. Dazed, he slowly rises, clutching his head, fury simmering just beneath the surface. Gritting his teeth, Hansen demands to know what the hell the stranger is doing. But the response is pure arrogance. The stranger coldly orders him to shut up and take him where he wants to go, now. The tone is commanding, disrespectful, and completely dismissive, only adding fuel to Hansen's rage. Without another word, Hansen activates the beast soul. A vibrant flame of energy ignites in his hands, quickly taking the form of a radiant, magical spear. With a steady voice, he warns the stranger he will not be treated like trash. The stranger brought this on himself. Hansen strikes fast, unleashing a series of swift and precise spear attacks. But to his shock, the stranger dodges every blow effortlessly, moving with unbelievable agility. Then, with a sneer, he mocks Hansen's technique, dismissing it as child's play. Even without a beast soul of his own, the stranger doesn't consider Hansen a real threat. Then it happens. The stranger gathers a terrifying amount of energy in his hands, a condensed field of raw, destructive force. He lashes out with it, landing a brutal blow. Hansen tries to block it with his magical spear, but the attack is so overwhelming, it shatters the spear in two. Stunned, Hansen reels from the impact. How could someone destroy his spear with their bare hands? The stranger answers the unspoken question with chilling confidence. He reveals that he uses ancient martial arts capable of unlocking dormant genetic potential, techniques that produce explosive force, akin to nuclear fusion. It's a skill available only to those in the middle stage of training. With contempt, the stranger raises his hand toward Hansen, calling him an idiot and giving him a final ultimatum: guide him to the sanctuary or die. Hansen snaps. His fury erupts like a volcano. Who the hell does this guy think he is? Hansen roars back that if the stranger wants directions, he'll tell get them, but the road leads straight to hell. In an instant, Hansen transforms, donning his divine beast soul armor. The suit radiates with power and menace. He launches a furious assault, striking with lightning speed and savage force. But again, the stranger evades every attack with calm, calculated ease. Then, moving into position, the stranger lands a punch at close range. It collides with Hansen's armor, unleashing a burst of energy that blasts both fighters apart. The clash is so intense it shakes the battlefield like a violent storm. Still recovering, Hansen stares in disbelief. Even his armor, crafted from the soul of a divine beast, is taking damage. That shouldn't be possible. The stranger starts laughing, his voice filled with rage and envy. He realizes Hansen is wearing divine beast soul armor strong enough to endure techniques like the ice muscle and jade bone. That fact alone enrages him. With venom in his voice, the man spits out that Hansen isn't worthy of wearing such sacred equipment. He demands that the armor be handed over immediately. Without hesitation, he charges again, this time with even greater force. Hansen is battered by the next wave of blows. The stranger's strikes are too strong, each one feels like it's going to break him. Then, seizing him by the leg, the stranger lifts him and slams him into the ground with devastating force. The pain is excruciating. Hansen screams. The stranger, standing over him, scoffs coldly. He declares that a weakling remains a weakling, no matter what power he's been granted. He mocks Hansen for refusing to give up the armor peacefully. But then, everything changes. A surge of power explodes from Hansen's body. In a blinding flash, he transforms, ascending to a new level. The energy that bursts forth is raw, unstable, and violent. In one clean, brutal motion, he delivers a crushing blow to the stranger's head. Caught off guard, the stranger reels from the impact. For the first time, he feels pain, real, sharp pain. The expression on his face shifts from arrogance to stunned disbelief. Hansen's blood boils. The fury that's been building inside him finally erupts, engulfing him completely. His eyes burn with rage. The real fight has only just begun. Hansen hovers in the air, his body now radiating a powerful energy field. His transformation is complete, and he stares down at the enemy below with cold finality. In a chilling voice, he declares the stranger's fate. He is doomed to die today. The stranger, once confident and arrogant, now looks up in horror. He realizes too late, he's made a fatal mistake. What stands before him is no longer the same Hansen. Drawing upon the soul of the divine beast, Hansen unleashes a devastating assault. The energy surrounding him takes shape, morphing into the terrifying figure of a colossal alien creature. Then, in a blinding flash, Hansen charges. The stranger throws everything he has into defending himself, summoning every ounce of skill and strength. But it's not enough. The beast soul's overwhelming power crushes everything in its path. The stranger is sent crashing to the ground. Stunned, he can barely react before Hansen descends upon him, striking again and again. Each blow is brutal, filled with all the anger and humiliation Hansen has held back until now. The stranger's defenses crumble. Blow after blow rains down. Hansen has become a merciless force of destruction, consumed by fury. His opponent, now broken and helpless, finally pleads for mercy, acknowledging his defeat. But it's far too late. Then, silence. The battle is over. Hansen stares at the lifeless body, breathing heavily. A cold realization settles over him. He has killed a man. For the first time in his life. The rush of battle fades, replaced by shock. He drops to the ground, knees buckling under the weight of what he's just done. Even now, Hansen can't make sense of it all. His opponent was powerful, terrifyingly powerful. Had that man possessed a divine beast soul of his own, Hansen might not have survived. Despite the victory, his own armor was damaged, and his body battered. Driven by curiosity and caution, Hansen crawls toward the fallen enemy and begins to search him. Somewhere in the wreckage of clothes and armor, he finds it, a strange, glowing crystal. Small, bright, and clearly high-tech. It looks like a memory chip. Intrigued, Hansen takes it back to his room in the shelter. At his desk, under the glow of the molecular microscope, he carefully examines the chip. This is no ordinary object. As the data loads, he's stunned by what appears on the screen, a complete record of the ice muscle and jade bone. Technique. This is the very technique used by noble elites, techniques so rare that even princesses of the imperial family are trained in them. Hansen once dreamed of acquiring this nuclear-level gene technology, but it was far beyond his reach. Yet now, by pure chance, he holds the original. For the next 3 days, Hansen isolates himself, diving deep into the data. He studies the technique with laser focus, absorbing every detail. Slowly, he begins to notice changes, unnatural changes. His body starts to feel cold. The warmth of human life seems to fade from his skin. Concerned, Hansen checks his body temperature. It has dropped by 2 degrees. His suspicions are confirmed. This technique is changing him, transforming his very biology. As he stares at the chip in his hands, he wonders, how could something this powerful have simply been carried around in such a dangerous world? Just then, his phone rings. On the other end is an old friend, calling with excitement and urging Hansen to come out right away. When Hansen asks where they're headed, the answer is vague and playful, "You'll find out soon enough." He agrees. Later, Hansen finds himself sitting in his friend's car. He's quiet, listening absently to the lively conversations around him. One of his companions recounts an exaggerated tale, how the mysterious money brother transformed into a golden centaur and vanished before anyone could catch him. Hansen says nothing. He stares out the window, expression unreadable. His mind lingers on a dangerous truth: none of them know that the legend they're chasing, the man everyone in the shelter talks about, is him. He is Money Brother. And his story is only just beginning. Hansen suddenly recalls that one of his friends had ended up in a steel shelter after a family crisis, leaving his loved ones in a difficult position. The memory stirs something in him. It's time to stop pretending. He turns to his friend and asks, plainly, "Where exactly are we going?" His friend smiles and replies cryptically, "We're almost there." Minutes later, their car pulls up in front of one of the massive martial arts stadiums. As Hansen steps inside, he's stunned by the sheer number of people, an overwhelming crowd, chanting in unison, their voices echoing off the stadium walls. They are all here for the same reason, to witness the arena's star, the Son of God, ranked 5th in the first shelter. He's the fan favorite. The battle begins. A blinding flash of energy erupts in the arena as one of the monster fighters undergoes its soul transformation. Hansen watches, captivated. The atmosphere is electric. Caught in the moment, he suddenly shouts in support of one of the fighters. His friend laughs, telling him that the guy he's rooting for is far weaker than the mysterious warrior known only as Money Brother, a rising legend whose reputation is already shaking the shelter. Everyone talks about how Money Brother stole the soul of a monster, a move that shocked the entire shelter. Hansen remains quiet, but inwardly, he agrees. Yes, it was a dirty move. But it was also a necessary one. The Son of God is his enemy, and stealing the soul was his way of taking revenge. He knows no one must ever learn the truth, he is Money Brother. 2 weeks pass like a blur. Back in his room, Hansen sits near a cage, watching the copper-toothed beast inside. Now mutated, the creature represents a valuable opportunity. Hansen is tempted to consume it and enhance his genes, but he holds back. Right now, he needs money more than power. So, he arranges a deal. That night, Hansen meets with Xiao in the Valley of the Winds, a desolate clearing surrounded by shadows. He hands Xiao a heavy package, mutant jerky made from high-grade monster meat. When asked the price, Hansen doesn't hesitate, 2 million. In cash. He insists he's no scammer. The meat is authentic, and the quality justifies the cost. Xiao agrees and pays up, complimenting Hansen on being a reliable partner. Then, almost casually, Xiao adds that Xuan, a prominent girl from the shelter, sent a message. She's offering to buy the soul of the divine blood beast and the golden axe that Hansen had taken. Hansen's response is simple, tell her to name a fair price. Later, deep in the forest, Hansen makes his way into the bottomless pit, a dangerous underground labyrinth. He's in good spirits, his armor has kept him safe from the poisonous crystal scorpions, and his bag is full of loot. But then, he freezes. Ahead, in the dim glow of the cave, he sees someone, a lone figure sitting on a stone. A woman's voice echoes through the tunnel. Money Brother. The words hit Hansen like a bolt. He stands motionless, stunned. She repeats her question, "Are you really Money Brother?" He doesn't respond. Instead, he starts walking, trying to avoid the conversation. But Xuan calls out again. She asks him to take her away, she's badly injured and clearly in no condition to move. Her voice is desperate, not manipulative. Hansen turns, skeptical. "You want me to carry you?" She nods. Her leg injury is too severe, and there's no other way out. Hansen takes a deep breath. He tells himself to stay calm. He's still wearing his armor. She can't recognize him. And besides, she's hurt, there's no way she could pose a threat. But still, he asks cautiously how someone stung by a scorpion can still speak. In response, Xuan shows him the shattered remnants of a monster's soul, explaining how the scorpion struck just as the dragon's power within her faded. Hansen steps closer. But Xuan is ready. She whips out a dagger and warns him not to try anything. The blade in her hand was forged from the soul of the poison heart butterfly, and not even his armor might withstand it. Hansen stops, raising his hands in surprise. I didn't even think about that, he replies honestly. He wasn't here to hurt her. But now, things have just gotten much more complicated. Hansen doesn't intend to hurt Xuan, after all, she's the one who asked him for help. When she promises to pay him generously if he gets her out of the cave safely, Hansen shrugs it off, saying he doesn't need money right now. But then he remembers the scorpion she mentioned. He turns back to her. Is the scorpion dead? Confused, Xuan points to its remains nearby, wondering why he cares. As she notices his heavy bag, filled with dead scorpions, realization hits her. How did he survive fighting so many poisonous monsters without a scratch? Hansen smirks. He tells her that as payment, he'll be taking the soul of the mutant, and he'll also be keeping the scorpion's body. Soon, they're trekking through the forest again. Hansen carries Xuan on his back, walking carefully near the bottomless pit. As they near the shelter, she asks him to take her all the way to the front gates. But Hansen refuses. If people see them together, it could expose him. Too risky, he says. Xuan, meanwhile, can't stop thinking about how casually he ate crystal scorpion meat earlier, as if it were a common meal. The idea of it makes her stomach turn. Hansen stops. The shelter's close. Call for help from here, he tells her, holding out his hand. Now pay me. Without a word, Xuan throws the mutant's soul to him. Did you get the message? He catches it easily and then says, the golden axe and the divine blood beast soul will cost you 2 million. Xuan is shocked. She argues that those items are nearly useless inside the shelter, their value outside doesn't apply here. 1 million, tops. That's her final offer. Hansen turns around and starts to walk away. Fine. I'll let you know the time and place for the next meeting through Xiao. Xuan glares at his back, furious. In her mind, Hansen is nothing but a greedy opportunist, a Kermagin, always squeezing profit from every situation. Later, Hansen returns to Steel Armor Shelter, but something feels wrong. Despite being in disguise, he senses unease. It clings to him like fog. Then, on the street, he sees an old friend, but the guy quickly turns his head and pretends not to notice him. Hansen watches in silence. The fear on his old friend's face is unmistakable. He doesn't want anything to do with Hansen anymore. Moments later, Hansen hears footsteps behind him. A familiar voice calls his name. He turns. It's the same friend, now speaking. Directly. You crossed Xuan, and the Son of God. I want nothing to do with it, the friend says coldly. From now on, let's pretend we were never brothers. Never even knew each other. I'm starting a new life. Hansen listens quietly, then nods. Fine. From now on, we're strangers. He walks away, holding his emotions in check. But deep down, he admits the truth to himself, they were never really friends. Back in his room, Hansen looks over his haul. The desk is piled with valuable artifacts and 2 briefcases stuffed with cash. He picks up a bundle of bills, his heart swelling with joy. At last, he says to himself, now my family can finally live a good life. That weekend, Hansen takes his mother and sister out for a walk around the city, a rare treat. He wants them to have a carefree day and forget their struggles. They stop in front of a luxurious pastry shop. Didn't you always want to try sapphire ice cream? He asks his little sister, smiling. Her face lights up. You're the best brother ever? Their mother, however, hesitates. She warns Hansen that this place is too expensive and that he should save the money he worked so hard to earn. But Hansen gently reassures her. Don't worry, Mom. Now that I've gone through gene mutation, I'll grow stronger, and I'll earn even more. You'll never have to worry again. The family heads inside the fancy shop and walks up the staircase to the 2nd floor, excited to enjoy a special moment together. But halfway up the stairs, an employee blocks their path. His face cold, the man says firmly, you can't go up there. Just like that, the mood shifts. As Hansen and his family try to ascend to the 2nd floor of the luxurious pastry shop, an attendant steps in their way. He gestures to a nearby sign and states firmly, the 2nd floor is reserved for celebrities and aristocrats only. The meaning is clear, this place isn't for people like them. Hansen is stunned. He thought having money meant he could go wherever he pleased. But this moment shows him the hard truth, wealth alone isn't enough. Class and status still draw the real boundaries. His mother gently steps in, trying to calm him. It's fine, she says. Buy your sister some ice cream, we'll wait for you outside. Hansen tries to hide his rising anger. But inside, the humiliation stings. That simple wooden sign, it wasn't just a rule, it was a wall. Right then and there, Hansen makes a vow. One day, he'll be someone powerful enough that no door will ever close to him, or to his family, again. The vault is a vast metropolis, divided into districts and connected by high-speed rail. Inside one of the crowded train cars, Hansen rides quietly, annoyed by how packed it always is during these hours. Suddenly, the train jerks to a violent stop. Passengers are thrown off balance, and Hansen is among them. He crashes hard right into a girl next to him. Worse yet, his hand accidentally lands on her chest during the fall. Mortified, Hansen scrambles to apologize, but he doesn't even get the words out before, wham! The girl punches him in the face. As he reels from the hit, still apologizing, the girl glares at him with fury. And that's when it clicks, they know each other. It's Soon, the same girl from his earlier misadventures. "What are you doing here?" Hansen mutters, rubbing his sore cheek. "You again?" Soon snaps. "At first, I thought you were just stupid, now I know you're a pervert and a scoundrel." The other passengers start whispering. They'd all seen the accidental contact. It didn't look good. Hansen desperately tries to explain, "It was the train. I fell." But Soon cuts him off. "Maybe I'd believe that if this weren't the second time. Or did you forget the knife you stuck in my butt?" The train finally arrives at the station, breaking the tension. As Soon steps out, she turns to Hansen one last time. "This is your final warning. Do anything like this again, and I'll personally see to it that you land in prison." As she walks onto the platform, a military honor guard greets her. The soldiers salute and call her mistress, revealing her status as the commander of the local garrison. Hansen's eyes widen. She's the one in charge here? He realizes with dread her people can now watch his every move. One mistake, and his secret identity could be exposed. Determined, Hansen makes another decision, from now on, avoid Soon at all costs. But his train of thought is cut short when a rough voice growls behind him, "You idiot! Come here!" Hansen turns to see a man glaring directly at him. The man grabs Hansen by the collar and drags him forward. "I didn't ask for excuses. You're coming with us." Before he can protest, Hansen finds himself swept up into a fast-moving group of men heading into the mountain forests. These are elite hunters, moving with purpose, their conversation filled with talk of successful monster captures. Hansen has already been with them for days. Though they've caught many monsters, they've yet to find a high-ranking mutant, which leaves the team slightly frustrated. Eventually, the group reaches the top of a towering cliff, where they stop before a massive, ominous cave. One of the men turns to Chinwan, the Divine Sun's right-hand man, and reports that this is the place. Chinwan nods, his voice sharp. He barks orders, pointing at several hunters to go in for reconnaissance. No one dares argue. Then he notices Hansen standing nearby. With a smirk, Chinwan nudges Hansen's shoulder. "Try not to screw this up," he sneers. Hansen clenches his jaw. He knows exactly what's happening, they're using him as cannon fodder. A disposable body to send into whatever danger lurks in that cave. He stares at the dark entrance and realizes, if he wants to survive, he'll have to play this smarter than anyone else. Torches flicker against the cave walls as the reconnaissance team slowly ventures deeper into the darkness. Tension hangs thick in the air. Some of the more seasoned hunters begin to murmur, they've gone too far, and the cave's silence feels unnatural. One of them suggests slowing their pace. But their warning is met with a sharp crack of an energy whip. The man from the Divine Sun's retinue, irritated by the chatter, lashes those lagging behind and snarls, "Enough talking. You've already been paid, move faster." The group pushes forward, their fear growing with each step, until the path opens into a massive chamber. Before them lies a vast, underground lake, its surface perfectly still, smooth as glass. The mercenaries pause, stunned by the eerie beauty of the place. One of them steps forward. "The road ends here, sir. There's nothing but water." Without hesitation, the Divine Sun subordinate raises his hand, and several glowing capsules materialize in the air, transforming instantly into inflatable boats. The hunters stare in awe. Most had never even seen technology like this. "Get across," he orders. Hansen watches silently, noting how well prepared these people are. They knew what they were looking for, this wasn't a blind exploration. The mercenaries board the boats, which begin gliding slowly across the black water. But Hansen notices something disturbing. The Divine Sun's men aren't boarding. Only the hired mercenaries are being sent across. A chill creeps down Hansen's spine. Something's wrong. Then a splash, followed by another, and then a deafening roar tears through the chamber. From beneath the lake, a massive beast rises, a hulking, terrifying monster. Hansen's breath catches. The creature emerges fully from the depths, its scales black as obsidian, its eyes burning with hellish red fire. It's a black dragon, a rare, divine blood beast. With a monstrous roar, the dragon shatters the boats in a violent wave. Mercenaries scream, tossed into the freezing water. Chaos erupts as men beg for help, splashing desperately toward shore. On land, Chinsuan, the Divine Sun's second-in-command, smiles. At last, he says, the divine blood beast has shown itself. Then, the dragon strikes. It surges forward and snaps one of the mercenaries in half with its jaws. Panic spreads like wildfire. Hansen realizes what's really going on. This was never a reconnaissance mission. It was bait. Chinsuan cracks his energy whip again, barking at the mercenaries to hold their ground. You were paid. Fulfill your duties, or I'll kill you myself. He doesn't care who dies. The Divine Sun had been hunting this beast for a long time, and he was willing to sacrifice dozens of lives to get it. Terrified whispers circulate among the mercenaries. Despite their fear, a few decide to risk it, hoping that sheer numbers might let them outrun the dragon. Hansen, however, sees the truth. They're being fed to the beast to buy time. Suddenly, the dragon vanishes beneath the surface. Now's the chance, someone shouts. A desperate rush begins, mercenaries flailing across the lake, praying they'll make it to the other side. Hansen grits his teeth. He's not dying here, not for Chinsuan, not for anyone. As the massive shadow moves beneath the water again, he activates his hidden identity. In a flash, he dons his battle armor, using the chaos to slip away from the main group unnoticed. He will survive. No matter what. Then, boom! The dragon breaches the water again, smashing another boat to pieces. Bodies fly into the air, and blood stains the lake's surface. Of the 40 who crossed, only 7 survive. A shaken hunter reports to Chinsuan, the beast must be full. It's safe now. Satisfied, Chinsuan waves his men forward. Confident that the dragon won't attack again, the Divine Sun's entourage boards the remaining boats and sails across without incident. Their plan worked. The beast had been fed. The threat had passed, for now. But Hansen, watching from the shadows, knows one thing for certain: he will never forget this betrayal. The party continues deeper into the cave, their path lit by flickering torches. Each step is cautious, every breath held in suspense. Then, hidden behind a narrow crevice, the group discovers something extraordinary: 2 enormous eggs nestled carefully in the shadows. Chinsuan's expression twists into something dark and grotesque, like a demon savoring his prey. His eyes gleam with greed as he stares at the divine blood creature eggs. With these, he thinks, he can raise his gene count and increase his power. Take them, he barks at 2 mercenaries. The mercenaries obey without question. As they lift the eggs, they're startled by the immense weight. But before they can fully process it, a deafening roar erupts. A giant black dragon appears, its jaws wide open, unleashing a terrifying cry that shakes the cave walls. The mercenaries freeze, clutching the precious eggs, helpless before the monster. Chinsuan, snarling in frustration, calls them useless. He draws his sword and charges forward, shouting for his men to distract the beast while he retrieves the eggs himself. The hunters and mercenaries rally together, doing everything they can to divert the dragon's wrath. Amid the chaos, Chinsuan reaches the mercenaries and snatches the eggs from their hands. As the dragon's rampage grows more violent, Chinsuan clutches the eggs to his chest, retreating as fast as he can, triumphant. Finally, he thinks, they're mine. But then, wham! A powerful strike lands squarely on Chinsuan's face, sending him reeling. The eggs fall from his grip. Before him stands Hansen, clad in full battle armor, holding both eggs. Calm and defiant, he says, "You're celebrating too early." Chinsuan, blood streaming from his broken nose, looks up and recognizes the attacker. His rage explodes. Money, brother. Again. Hansen, however, feels the tide turning. Things are finally going his way. He's nearly reached one of the inflatable boats, but he suddenly stops. He senses something above him. He looks up. Another dragon. Turning around, he sees Chinsuan and his men rushing toward him. Hansen tosses one egg back to the furious divine sun, thinking to himself that the hunters can wait, the dragon is the real threat now. Chinsuan catches the egg. But something doesn't feel right. He glances at it, the egg is empty. Before he can react, the elder hunter screams a warning. And then, a second massive black dragon explodes from the water behind him, mouth wide open, unleashing a roar that freezes everyone in place. Chinsuan screams in fury, "Money, brother! Your death will be long and painful." But Hansen has already escaped. At the steel-armored shelter transport station, Hansen is brimming with satisfaction. Not only did he survive, but he tasted the black dragon's egg and humiliated his enemy in the process. His divine gene count has increased by 13 points. One step closer to the power he dreams of. Just as things seem calm, Jan appears, blocking his path. She glares at him. "Where were you?" she demands. "Did you really think I'd let you disappear for days without saying anything?" Hansen, caught off guard, doesn't know what to say. He doesn't want to provoke her, but her sudden appearance throws him off balance. Soon, they're in the sparring room of the training complex. The air is thick with tension. Jan sets the terms: "If you defeat me, I won't bother you again." Hansen knows this won't be easy. Jan is no ordinary opponent. She possesses nearly 100 divine genes and is a highly experienced combatant. Worse, she also has multiple high-level souls, though she graciously agrees to leave them out for this fight. Instead, she sets a new rule: take 50 of my hits, and we're even. Hansen quickly realizes standing still would be suicide. He'll never survive her full-strength blows unless he stays mobile and takes the initiative. Jan assumes her fighting stance and begins the countdown. The moment she says start, Hansen strikes. A lightning-fast blow lands cleanly on her face before she can react, shaking her confidence. The sparring match has begun, and Hansen isn't holding back. Suan clutches her bruised face, stunned by Hansen's unexpectedly brutal strike. She hadn't anticipated such a fierce attack, and it puts her in a tough spot. Hansen feels awkward. He actually hoped she'd block the blow. Embarrassed, he rushes forward to apologize but inwardly wishes only to escape this fight as quickly as possible. He's unsure how this will end and worries he might be making a mistake. Just then, after landing a hit himself, Hansen regains focus and invites Suan to continue the match. Without hesitation, Hansen delivers another lightning-fast punch. Suan fails to parry again, confirming how shockingly strong and fast Hansen is for her. She drops to her knees, nursing her bruised nose. Feeling a bit guilty, Hansen reminds her that she had told him to attack first, so he did what she asked. Yet, in his mind, he knows this opportunity won't come again, and he can't stop now. Suan's anger ignites like wildfire. Her eyes flash with rage, and she screams that she will kill him. Launching a powerful counterattack, she forces Hansen to dodge with all his remaining strength. Realizing that speed and endurance are his only hope for survival, Hansen fights to keep up as Suan's body transforms, her anger manifesting physically as a demonic aura and a radiant energy field pulsing around her. After the brutal sparring, Hansen limps out of the training room, face battered and bruised. He admits to himself that he failed to withstand 50 hits and has a long way to go. This defeat sharpens his resolve. He is still too weak and must train harder to grow stronger. Every failure is a reminder of how vital preparation is. Meanwhile, Suan takes a shower, feeling unsettled by the fight. Though Hansen attacked unexpectedly, she's disturbed by her inability to block even 2 of his strikes. Curious and concerned, she reviews the fight's video replay in her room. Watching carefully, she acknowledges Hansen's powerful punches but notes his moves are somewhat formulaic, which she believes could be exploited next time. She's intrigued by his explosive strength and decisiveness, pondering just how serious a threat he might become. Suan suspects Hansen behaves like a professional killer, focused on landing one decisive blow, and wonders if his skills are innate or trained. Regardless, she finds him too vile and contemptible to forgive. Elsewhere, an older man relaxes in a chair, explaining the different training courses offered: beginner, intermediate, and advanced, covering disciplines like Wu, weapons, and harder styles. His surprised Hansen chose the advanced and notoriously difficult Evil Ghosts technique, which requires exceptional physical fitness. This makes the man question how serious Hansen truly is. Hansen brushes off concerns and hands over a card loaded with 1 million in currency, confident he can handle the challenge. He knows he's stronger than before thanks to mastering the ice muscle and jade bone techniques, but understands he still needs more experience to fully harness them. Spying on other training sessions, Hansen is shocked by what he sees: hardly serious training, more like awkward touching and clumsy grappling. It's a disgrace. Grabbing his head in disbelief, he worries that Jianyu will be furious if he uses these or techniques in their sparring. Realizing there's no turning back, Hansen resolves to train hard, especially since he's already paid for the course. After several days, he feels clumsy himself, much like the old man who teaches him, but he hopes this new technique will be useful when facing tougher opponents. Back in his room, Hansen watches his mutated monster pet. The crystal he gave it is accelerating its transformation, potentially turning it into a divine beast. This fills Hansen with hope and excitement, opening doors he never imagined. Later, alone in the forest near the shelter, Hansen reflects on how he hasn't seen the Son of God or his followers in quite some time. What's happening with them now? While he still has time, Hansen decides to test and study the spirit beast he received from the girl, curious about what might emerge. Suddenly, from the energy field on his hand, a small, adorable kitten materializes. Hansen can't help but feel puzzled. He expected a fierce or wild spirit beast, not a tiny, cute feline. He wonders if the girl was mocking him with this weak ally. Holding the kitten, he questions what use such a fragile creature could possibly have in battle. Still, Hansen extends his hand and commands the three-eyed mutant cat to attack the large monster nearby. The huge beast stops grazing and watches cautiously as the kitten approaches. The cat growls and leaps at the monster, only to be swiftly kicked away and sent tumbling back to Hansen's feet. Hansen is surprised and disappointed by how weak the spirit is. In a real fight, the kitten would have been easily killed. The little cat sits by Hansen's feet and meows pitifully. Hansen realizes that with such a helpless companion, he's unlikely to become a powerful hunter anytime soon. He suspects the girl tricked him, giving him a spirit beast meant only for show. Accepting that this home spirit offers no real battle advantage, Hansen draws his combat dagger and charges the monster himself. Later, Hansen picks up a large piece of meat from the fire and offers the kitten a small portion. The cat eagerly drools over the treat, which surprises Hansen. Unlike typical spirits that return to the void to recover, this one eats real food, and with a huge appetite, even more than Hansen himself. Despite the kitten's uselessness in combat, Hansen finds its company enjoyable, and that alone brings some comfort. Suddenly, a loud scream cuts through the air, pulling Hansen's attention away from the kitten. A young man bursts from the nearby bushes, running toward Hansen and shouting desperately for help. A few seconds later, loud stomping sounds echo through the air, and clouds of dust rise as Hansen realizes the young man is being chased by a pack of huge monsters. The stranger, terrified, begs Hansen for help and promises to pay him handsomely. The desperation in his voice reveals his urgent will to survive. Without hesitation, Hansen jumps up and starts running. He warns the stranger that the herd could easily trample them, and no amount of money would matter if they don't find shelter quickly. Hansen races toward a steep cliff, grabbing a sturdy vine to climb up to the plateau, a potential safe haven. The stranger follows close behind, screaming for help and pleading to be lifted up. Hansen reaches out, telling him to hurry before the monsters catch him. The stranger grabs Hansen's hand tightly, and together they climb to safety on a small ledge. Hansen explains they'll have to wait there until the monsters move on. The stranger lights a cigarette and begins sharing his story. He's been traveling for a long time and lost the souls of the animals he was carrying. Starving, he stumbled upon a large pack of monsters, which became a nightmare for him. Hansen notices the cigarette is expensive, signaling the stranger isn't poor. Grateful for the rescue, the stranger asks Hansen's name and inquires about the Glory Shelter, hoping to find useful information. Hansen tells him about a steel armor vault 2 days away but admits he's never heard of a Glory Shelter. Frustrated and angry at being lost, the stranger curses his misfortune. He looks down at the pack of monsters below and assures Hansen not to worry, promising a generous reward once they escape. The stranger asks if Hansen has any water or food, explaining he hasn't eaten in days. Hansen offers a glass of water and a piece of dried monster meat, but tells the stranger it will cost him 10,000. Outraged, the stranger calls it robbery and doubts they'll get along. Hansen shrugs and says the stranger can eat elsewhere if he doesn't like the terms. Eventually, the stranger calms down and proposes a deal. He'll take the food and water on credit, promising to repay 3 times the amount once they reach safety. Days pass as they remain stuck on the ledge, trapped by aggressive monsters below. The stranger grows increasingly impatient, loudly complaining about the animal's refusal to leave. Realizing their supplies are running low, Hansen decides to act. He plans to climb the mountain and descend from the other side. Grabbing a strong vine, Hansen carefully ascends the steep cliff, focusing intensely to avoid mistakes. The stranger watches nervously and warns Hansen to be careful and to never leave him alone. At the mountain summit, Hansen finds a massive nest with an enormous egg at its center. Curiosity and unease flood him as he wonders how large the parent creature must be. Wasting no time, Hansen draws his dagger and strikes the egg, painstakingly piercing its shell. Using a tube, he sucks out the egg's contents, hoping this creature might carry the divine blood he desperately needs. His suspicions prove true when a system notification confirms the hunt was successful. The divine bloodstorm phoenix has been killed, granting Hansen one gene of this rare power. Meanwhile, the stranger remains alone on the ledge, anxiously watching the monsters below. He vows never to approach such terrifying beasts again, no matter how hungry he becomes, as their presence fills him with fear and disgust. Soon after, Hansen descends the mountain safely and returns to the ledge, greeted by the clearly worried stranger. The stranger confesses that he was very worried about Hansen, fearing something serious might have happened to him. His attention immediately shifts to Hansen's unusually swollen belly, and with a hint of irony, he jokingly asks if Hansen is expecting a child. Hansen hands him a glass and explains that it contains the egg of a divine-blooded creature known as the Storm Phoenix. The stranger accepts it gladly, making jokes as he takes the glass. In one swift motion, he drinks it all at once, visibly delighted. Curious, Hansen asks the stranger what a phoenix egg tastes like, adding that he has now gained one divine gene. The stranger's expression changes instantly. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he starts addressing Hansen respectfully as a sir, thanking him deeply for such a generous gift. He promises to repay Hansen's kindness and protect him from anyone who dares show disrespect. Hansen, however, warns the stranger that his reputation in the shelter isn't the best and suggests he keeps his distance. The stranger refuses to back down, insisting that Hansen has treated him as a friend and that he intends to repay that friendship with loyalty and protection. At that moment, the pack of animals that had been guarding them at the foot of the mountain suddenly retreats into the forest, leaving them in safety. The stranger bids Hansen farewell, waving goodbye and expressing that it was a pleasure to meet him. The scene then shifts to a busy transit station shelter, a bustling transport hub filled with non-stop activity. Hansen walks along the platform in high spirits, reflecting on the fact that the Storm Phoenix egg has granted him 5 more divine genes, bringing his total to 18. He plans to go home to rest. But his mood quickly changes when he encounters a girl blocking his path. Hansen greets her warmly, calling her boss and trying to keep the conversation light and friendly with jokes. However, Sean responds with strict seriousness, commanding Hansen to follow her. Though Hansen tries to maintain a friendly facade, he feels irritated and reluctant to engage with her. After a while, they arrive at the training center, stepping into the sparring room where the atmosphere instantly grows tense. Hansen knows he has reached the peak of his demonic possession technique and believes that facing Sean this time will be easier than before. Soo-an announces the start of the sparring and begins moving around the room with incredible speed. At the last moment, Hansen notices her close approach and prepares to kick him. He feels genuine relief that he spotted the attack in time and narrowly dodges Sean's blow. Having studied Hansen's technique well, Soo-an realizes he is capable of sudden, explosive attacks. Determined not to give him any chance for surprise moves, she decides to keep him constantly on guard. Despite her swift movements, Hansen manages to anticipate Soo-an's next strike. With a sharp reaction, he sidesteps her attack and seizes her leg, effectively cutting off her momentum. In one fluid motion, he executes a powerful throw, slamming her to the ground. Without hesitation, he transitions into a painful leg hold, bending her limb to restrict her movement. Speaking in a mocking tone, Hansen addresses Soo-an as mistress and asks if this performance qualifies as his victory. Enraged, Soo-an lashes out verbally, hurling insults at him and stubbornly refusing to acknowledge defeat. She declares that he shouldn't even dream of beating her in a spar. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. A powerful energy field erupts around Soo-an, morphing into blazing flames. Hansen is visibly shaken and instinctively retreats. Without warning, Soo-an summons the soul of a monstrous beast, a towering predator radiating raw power and fear. Faced with the terrifying spirit, Hansen panics. He shouts at her, reminding her that they had agreed not to use animal souls in sparring. He barely dodges the beast's devastating strike as it crashes into the arena wall, sending concrete debris flying and plunging the area into chaos. As the dust settles, Shuan's body begins to take on a demonic form. Her energy flares with fierce intensity, and her relentless pressure becomes overwhelming. Hansen watches in stunned silence as she exits the arena, leaving him to grapple with his own limitations. He clutches his head in despair, realizing just how vast the gap is between his strength and hers. Strength he once took pride in now feels utterly insignificant. Yet, Shuan acknowledges that Hansen has grown. She admits, albeit grudgingly, that he's improved enough to not only resist her strikes but to provoke her into unleashing her beast soul, something she hadn't anticipated. In the days that follow, both continue training intensively in the sparring arena. Shuan, still fuming, accuses Hansen of playing the fool and resolves to teach him a lesson for his supposed deception. Hansen, sensing that she's deliberately trying to provoke him, chooses to remain calm. He views this ongoing challenge as an opportunity to sharpen his skills and considers himself lucky to have such a formidable woman as a sparring partner. However, he's still troubled by her harsh demeanor and complete lack of tenderness. Then, an unexpected voice calls his name. Turning, Hansen sees a girl confidently announcing that she's completed her initiation and can now leave the shelter. He instantly recognizes her as a former classmate from elementary school. Smiling, he reminisces on how quickly time has passed and begins to strike up a conversation. But their reunion is abruptly interrupted by a jet car landing beside them. A stern man steps out, clearly irritated. He scolds the girl for not using the home teleport again, forcing him to come looking for her. He warns her about the dangers of such travel, mentioning that transfer stations are full of raga muffins and insisting she be more cautious. The girl tries to defuse the situation, explaining she was simply catching up with an old friend. But the man, exuding arrogance, gives Hansen a scornful glance. Hansen politely introduces himself and extends his hand, only to be coldly rejected. The man declares Hansen unworthy of being the girl's friend and warns him to stay away, threatening consequences if he doesn't comply. Deeply insulted by the man's rudeness, Hansen asks if he even knows who he's speaking to. The man is taken aback by Hansen's boldness and, irritated, demands clarification. The confrontation escalates. The man threatens to put Hansen in his place and charges at him. But Hansen, thanks to his intense training, is more than ready. He's mastered close-quarters combat and learned to harness demonic possession, skills that now give him the edge. Effortlessly, he dodges the incoming blows, swiftly closes the distance, and grabs the man by the collar. With precision and strength, he hurls the man to the ground. The girl screams out in alarm, pleading with Hansen to stop. Hansen loosens his grip and reassures her that the man is tougher than glass and won't break. He clarifies that he didn't mean to harm him, this was merely his way of saying hello. With that, Hansen checks the time and announces he's heading home. He turns to the girl and says they can catch up over dinner another time. Left fuming and humiliated, the man seethes. He repeats Hansen's name under his breath and vows to take revenge. The defeat is not something he will forget, or forgive. As the girl watched Hansen walk away, a man's voice broke the silence behind her. He remarked that her friend was quite an interesting one. The girl, sensing trouble, quickly asked him not to do anything to Hansen. The man simply smiled, a sly, knowing grin creeping across his face. He suggested that she should invite her new acquaintance to dinner sometime. After all, in his words, Hansen had given him a generous gift, and it was only polite to repay it. Though she agreed to the idea, the girl couldn't shake the feeling that the man had something far more sinister in mind. Meanwhile, Hansen was back in his room, seated in front of his computer. He was deep in thought, reflecting on how he hadn't been able to hunt animals in the mountains lately. Determined to find an alternative, he scoured a forum for any promising opportunities. Soon, one offer caught his eye. Someone was willing to pay a high price for the souls, flesh, and blood of mutant beasts. But Hansen knew how rare such materials had become, it wouldn't be easy to fulfill that request. Then, another advertisement stood out. A private client was hiring escorts, offering generous compensation. The only condition was the ability to take down 10 primitive creatures alone. It was a challenge, but one Hansen believed he could meet. He decided to respond to the offer, but he'd need a reliable weapon first. His old bronze crescent spear had broken during the last battle, so he started browsing for a replacement. That's when he found it, a Black Knight Series dual alloy bow paired with Demon's Edge Series arrows. The combination boasted exceptional killing power. On the market, it would cost at least 7 million credits. Strangely, the listing had been up for a while, with no buyers. Hansen studied the specs. The bow had a maximum range of 800 meters and could pierce armor from 300 meters away. However, there was a catch. According to the association's regulations, the weapon could only be used by those with over 7 power points. Hansen wasn't sure if he qualified, but he hoped his training, especially the ice muscle and jade bone techniques, might be enough to meet the threshold. He only had 1 million credits left, but he placed an offer anyway. Hours passed with no response. Hansen began to suspect the listing was outdated or that the seller was unimpressed by his offer. But then, to his surprise, a notification came through. The seller had accepted. Overjoyed, Hansen knew he'd secured an incredible deal. The next day, a transport company employee arrived at his room with a delivery. Hansen signed the documents, and the moment the worker left, he tore open the box to inspect his new weapon. He pulled the bowstring back, feeling its power. A thought flashed in his mind: this weapon would allow him to avoid close combat when facing beings of divine blood. He remembered that he'd already stolen prey from the Son of God twice before. That thought filled him with satisfaction, and he vowed to do it again. When he arrived at the designated meeting spot, he was surprised by the crowd that had gathered. Then, a stranger pointed directly at him and shouted that he recognized Hansen. The man laughed and called him an ass maniac, making fun of the bow slung across Hansen's back, which, he joked, suited him perfectly. Among the crowd, Hansen spotted an old acquaintance who pretended not to know him. The men teased him, asking if he was seriously here to get hired as a bodyguard. The first man continued his mockery, recalling the embarrassing incident where Hansen accidentally stabbed a man named Jan in the buttocks. Despite the laughter, Hansen kept his composure. He told them that if they didn't think he was fit to protect them, he would simply leave. But the man who had been joking earlier suddenly turned serious. That's not the case at all, he declared. Then, in a commanding tone, he ordered Hansen to stay. He would be his personal bodyguard. Those nearby were surprised by the decision. They asked the young man if he was sure and whether it was a wise move. The young gentleman, however, was resolute. He handed Hansen an employment contract and told him to sign it. One of the guards, clearly displeased, voiced his disapproval. He muttered that Hansen was just lucky and warned him not to disappoint their employer. Soon after, the group began moving through a forested area near the shelter. As they advanced cautiously, someone pointed to a patch of dense bushes up ahead. He claimed he'd just spotted a primitive creature hiding within. Tension rose in the air. The mission was only beginning. The group turned their heads, eyes narrowing as a blur of motion darted through the nearby bushes. A shadowy animal figure rushed past, barely visible through the thicket. Without hesitation, young Master Yuan issued an order to his hunters, who immediately sprang into action, charging into the underbrush in pursuit of the creature. The senior hunter shouted after them, reminding the team to ensure the young master's safety above all else. From his elevated position on a small hill, Hansen calmly readied an arrow. Drawing it from his quiver, he took aim and released it with practiced precision. The arrow cut through the air, but struck a tree trunk, nowhere near the beast's last location. Hansen noted that his Spirit of Destiny arrows were just as powerful as expected, but he needed to adjust the bow's draw weight for better control. The senior hunter, ever critical, smirked. He mocked Hansen's shot, saying that if he couldn't hit a target from just 20 meters away, he had no business calling himself the bodyguard of young Master Yuan. Unbothered, Hansen responded coolly. He hadn't meant to hit the animal, he was merely testing the arrow's balance. But the elder hunter wasn't convinced. That didn't look like practice, he muttered. It looked like an embarrassment. Nearby, Hansen noticed a familiar face, an old acquaintance standing silently among the crowd. It was clear from the man's expression that he didn't want anyone to know they had history. Meanwhile, the hunters had successfully driven the beasts into a dead end, herding them toward the base of a steep cliff. From his vantage point, Hansen watched the hunt unfold. Young Master Yuan was clearly elated. His team had managed to trap 3 black-spotted primitive beasts. The hunters urged him to be cautious, but Yuan, eager to test himself, lunged forward and attacked the predators with a blade known as the Pain Blade. Hansen, observing from afar, acknowledged the truth: these young masters were well-trained and had strong techniques. Their only real flaw was inexperience. The rest of the hunters, seasoned and disciplined, swiftly handled the creatures within minutes. As the dust settled, one of the young hunters eagerly approached the fallen monsters, admiring the trophies. But in his excitement, he failed to notice that one of the beasts wasn't quite dead. The creature's eyes opened silently. It had been feigning death, watching. waiting for the perfect moment. And then it pounced. The predator leapt into the air, its jaws wide open as it lunged at the unsuspecting hunter. Panic rippled through the crowd. The surrounding men stared in horror, too far to help in time. Suddenly, a sharp twang echoed through the forest. A single arrow whistled through the air, slicing cleanly past the young hunter's head and burying itself in the primitive beast's skull. The monster collapsed mid-air, dead before it hit the ground. The hunter fell backward, wide-eyed and gasping in disbelief. He screamed, scrambling away from the beast's lifeless body. His fellow hunters rushed to his side, hacking furiously at the corpse to ensure it was truly dead. Then Yuan himself ran over, kneeling beside the shaken hunter. With genuine concern on his face, he checked him for injuries and asked if he was all right. Still trembling, the young man nodded. "I'm fine," he muttered. "But I was scared to death." The senior hunter's reaction was far less gracious. Furious, he turned on Hansen, shouting that the man had nearly killed one of their own with his reckless shot. The other hunters joined in, voicing their anger and suspicion. But before things could spiral, a sharp command rang out. "Stand down," young Master Yuan ordered, his voice cutting through the tension. The senior hunter, clearly displeased, glared at Hansen. He asked why the man was still here, hadn't he been dismissed? Suddenly, Yuan strode forward. Without a word, he seized the senior hunter by the throat. His voice was cold and composed as he clarified, he had told the man to leave. Yuan's eyes blazed with fury. "I pay you to provide security," he snapped. "Where were you when one of my men was being attacked?" He didn't stop there. The young master continued dressing the man down, accusing him of inaction and cowardice, and now, trying to shift blame onto the only person who actually saved someone. The senior hunter stood his ground, reminding Yuan that firing him meant breaking their contract. He would be owed compensation. Without hesitation, Yuan pulled a thick wad of cash from his pocket and tossed it contemptuously into the air. "Take your money and leave," he spat. "You're useless." The older hunter stormed past Hansen, glaring daggers at him. His eyes were full of rage and humiliation. It was clear he bore Hansen a deep grudge. Meanwhile, the young hunter who had been saved approached Hansen, bowing his head in gratitude. "Thank you," he said sincerely. Hansen only smiled. "It was nothing," he replied modestly. "I'm just glad you're safe." Yuan's gaze lingered on the bow in Hansen's hand, doomed soul, a weapon that could only be used by those with a power level of at least 7. He raised an eyebrow. "Are you really level 7? He asked. Before Hansen could speak, the young hunter who'd just been rescued answered confidently, "He has to be. There's no way someone below level 7 could shoot like that." Young Master Yuan studied Hansen closely. The precision, the speed, no hesitation. He wasn't just strong, he was controlled. The young master mused aloud that Hansen's level had to be even higher than 7, perhaps 8 or more, just to be able to draw and fire that bow with such perfect form and deadly accuracy. Impressed, he stepped forward and extended a hand. "I hope we can work together for a long time," he said sincerely. Hansen shook his hand, feeling a sense of quiet pride. This wasn't just a job, it was recognition. A wealthy employer with insight and intelligence like Yuan was hard to come by. Hansen felt he had finally found someone worth following. 2 days later, Hansen returned to the shelter. At the gate, he was met by a group of hunters. One of them, a familiar face, mockingly asked if he had made a fortune yet. It was the senior hunter, the same one who had been humiliated and thrown out by young Master Yuan. His tone was sharp and laced with venom. Stepping closer, he growled that he didn't appreciate Hansen being there. And then, without warning, he lunged. Drawing a knife, the older man hurled himself at Hansen, shouting that he'd teach the boy a lesson. Hansen's old acquaintance, watching from the side, said nothing. He pretended not to know Hansen, too scared, or too cowardly, to intervene. The dagger whistled through the air, but Hansen was gone. In the blink of an eye, he had vanished from where he stood. Before anyone could process what had happened, Hansen reappeared beside the senior hunter. With a fluid motion, he grabbed the man's arm mid-strike, twisted it effortlessly, and disarmed him. The knife fell into Hansen's hand. The hunter hit the ground, stunned. The onlookers stood frozen. Their eyes were wide with disbelief. How had this quiet young man just taken down an experienced hunter so easily? Even Hansen's old friend looked on in shock, remembering a time when Hansen was weak and hopeless, barely able to kill a black beetle, scraping by just to survive. But this was someone entirely different. Still pinned to the ground, the senior hunter screamed at the others. "What are you waiting for? Help me," he bellowed, furious and humiliated. But Hansen wasn't done. "You talk too much," he muttered, twisting the man's arm harder until a scream ripped from his throat. The other hunters sprang into action, drawing their weapons and rushing toward Hansen in unison. In response, Hansen took the dagger, her gleaming blade now pulsing with energy, and made a series of calculated movements. Lines of radiant light crackled in the air around him. The hunters skidded to a stop. They stared, stunned. This wasn't normal. This wasn't something they had seen before. That glow, that pressure. It was something else. Hansen glanced down at the knife, eyebrows raised. "Who? Ruby steel," he murmured. That was a top-tier weapon. Blades like that could sell for over $1 million. A smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "Yeah. I've been needing a short dagger like this." Behind him, his former friend watched in disbelief. This couldn't be the same Hansen. Not the weak boy who once barely survived. Not the failure who hunted insects. But Hansen wasn't interested in nostalgia. He turned back to the wounded man on the ground. "This knife's too good for someone like you," he said. "So I'll be keeping it." Tucking it into his belt, he turned his back and walked away, each step deliberate and calm, as if nothing in the world could stop him. But it wasn't over. The senior hunter roared from the ground. "Stop right there," he ordered. "This isn't finished yet." One of the other hunters echoed his anger. "You're too arrogant," he snapped. "You think too highly of yourself." Suddenly, another rider appeared, blocking Hansen's path. He was a powerful man on horseback, cloaked in dark leathers, and his mere presence made the air feel heavier. The older hunter pointed at Hansen, his voice full of bitterness. "That bastard injured me. And stole my weapon. Avenge me." The man on horseback, referred to only as the writer, sneered. "You idiot," he spat at the senior hunter. "You're a disgrace." Without warning, the writer drew a massive whip, its barbed coils glinting dangerously in the light. "You're mad," he said to Hansen, raising the weapon high. "And today, I'll introduce you to death." The whip snapped forward with terrifying force. But Hansen was ready. He moved like lightning, parrying the blow with practiced ease. Their duel exploded into motion, whip cracking through the air, Hansen dodging and countering every strike with astonishing precision. The young man was stunned by the strength of his opponent. So the rumors are true, he thought. This guy's physical level is at least 9.5. But he wasn't the only one surprised. The writer's expression twisted. When did this loser get so strong, he wondered aloud. He can't be allowed to live, he's too dangerous. With renewed fury, the man raised his whip again, ready to end it. But Hansen moved first. In a single smooth motion, he pulled a battle arrow from his quiver and drew his bow. The tension in the air thickened instantly. The arrow pointed straight at the man on horseback. For the first time, real fear flickered in the writer's eyes. He hadn't expected this. He thought Hansen would run, submit, not draw on him. Now, with the arrow aimed squarely at his chest, that confidence began to crack. Silence fell over the group. Everyone held their breath. The hunters nearby were stunned. None of them could believe what they were witnessing, a lone young man aiming a drawn bow at Tanyang, the strongest among them, the so-called son of God. Faces full of disbelief and confusion turned toward Hansen, who stood unmoving, the string pulled taut, the arrow ready to fly. Hansen could feel the strain in his muscles. Holding a bow at full draw wasn't easy, and it drained his strength by the second. But he couldn't show weakness. Not now. His eyes locked on Tanyang. "Move again," he warned coldly, "and I'll kill you." His voice wasn't raised, but its calmness was more terrifying than a shout. The confidence in it sent a chill through the air. Suddenly, a group of figures emerged from the side. At their center was Xuan, flanked by her men. She approached without hesitation and stood between the two combatants. "Lower your arrow," she ordered Hansen, her voice firm and unwavering. Hansen blinked, surprised. What is she doing here? Her sudden appearance threw him off for a moment, but her presence only deepened the mystery surrounding her. Xuan didn't wait for a response. She turned to Tanyang. "You too. Stand down." Hansen kept his eyes on Tanyang, unsure if the man would obey. His fingers stayed firm on the string. He wasn't letting go until he was sure it was safe. Tanyang scowled. He clearly didn't want to obey, but he also couldn't disobey Xuan directly. Reluctantly, he lowered his whip, but his anger didn't fade. This brat has no respect for anyone, Tanyang spat. Just days ago, he stabbed you in the buttock. Does that mean nothing? The words rang through the air like a slap. It was loud, insulting, and laced with venom. His rage surged again. He challenged me today, humiliated me. I won't let this go. But before he could act, Xuan raised her hand. A blazing energy flared to life in her palm, and in an instant, she launched a focused energy beam directly at Tanyang. It struck his whip arm with a thunderous impact, the force knocking him clean off his horse. Gasps erupted from every corner. Tanyang hit the ground hard, his weapon flying from his grasp. His men rushed to his side, panicked and scrambling, asking if he was all right. Xuan didn't even flinch. I can handle my people, she said sharply. I don't need others interfering. With grace and authority, she passed by Hansen, her voice low and commanding. Follow me. Now. Hansen hesitated only a second before obeying. He could tell, this was not a request. Behind them, Tanyang glared with seething hatred. His pride was shattered, and the image of Hansen walking away beside Xuan only fueled his jealousy. How did that bastard charm her? He thought bitterly. His men whispered behind his back, some snickering. Looks like it was love at first stab, one muttered. Their laughter was crude and inappropriate, but Tanyang couldn't contain his fury. His face darkened. This will not go unpunished. Later, Hansen learned that Xuan wanted him to join her sharpshooting team. But the idea didn't excite him. His mood didn't match her plans. Xuan, however, was undeterred. You can channel the spirit of fate, she told him. That means you're not just a good shot, you're a rare one. She stepped closer. You challenged someone powerful today. If I hadn't stepped in, you'd already be in trouble. I suggest you stop pretending you can do everything on your own. Hansen nodded slowly, appreciating her concern. Thanks, he said. But I can handle myself. Xuan didn't flinch. Maybe, but I'm the only one here with an elite marksman squad. And if you want to survive long enough to make it into military school, you'll need allies. Starting with me. Hansen frowned. Who said I want to go to military school? I don't even have the physical fitness to hit level 10. Xuan's eyes narrowed with conviction. That standard is high or for ordinary people. But you're not one of them. Hansen stared at her, suspicion creeping into his voice. What are you trying to say? She didn't hesitate. You might look like a newbie, but I've seen enough to know what you really are. And I need what you bring to my team. Hansen studied her face, trying to gauge her intent. Then, with a smirk, he asked, so, you're still mad about that whole stabbed you in the butt thing? The reaction was instant. Xuan's face turned crimson and she exploded with fury. Don't you dare bring that up again, she screamed. Her shout echoed down the hall, and everyone nearby turned to look. Hansen just raised an eyebrow, more amused than apologetic. In her eyes, without military education or a noble title, Hansen had no future in the army, no chance at advancement. He'd be cannon fodder at best, just another nameless private. Her assessment was harsh, but grounded in realism. But Hansen wasn't the kind to accept such a fate. He looked her straight in the eye. Why are you so sure I won't earn a noble title? There was steel in his voice. He declared his plan. He would continue mastering the icebone technique, harness the power of higher-level genetic crystals, and climb the ranks himself. His words weren't boastful, they were a challenge to fate. Xuan didn't like being challenged. With a scowl, she grabbed him by the lapels and shook him hard. Don't question me, she barked. Join my squad. Now. Hansen realized that it was not worth pushing her further. Her intensity was dangerous. Calm but firm, he nodded. All right. I'll join. His tone was steady, his decision final. That night, Hansen lay in bed, exhausted. The last few days had been a whirlwind of tension, fights, and revelations. He thought about Xuan, her determination, her strength. If she ever decided to kill him, he wasn't sure he'd be able to stop her. The thought chilled him. She's not just a fighter. She's a storm. His train of thought was broken by a gentle knock on the door. When he opened it, his mother stood there. Can you take your sister to school tomorrow? She asked softly. I've got errands to run. Hansen's face lit up with surprise and joy. You enrolled her? His mother smiled and explained that the money he had left earlier had been enough. Not only had she used it, she had managed to get his little sister into one of the best schools in the city, known for its cutting-edge education and elite status. Hansen felt a surge of relief. Finally, something good. The next day, he walked hand in hand with his little sister toward the school gates. On the way, he asked her, "So, how do you like it? Made any friends yet?" She hesitated. "Not really. I'm still a bit shy. I haven't talked to anyone much." Hansen smiled and gently ruffled her hair. "That's okay. Just be kind, be yourself. Take your time. And if anyone bullies you, you come to me first, got it?" The girl nodded, a small smile forming. His calm, protective presence gave her the courage she needed. But just as they reached the school, Hansen froze. He spotted a familiar figure in the crowd, his first uncle, standing with his own child. Their eyes locked. The uncle's expression soured instantly, his surprise quickly turning to suspicion. He walked over, his voice restrained but cold. "What are you doing here?" Hansen remained composed. "Just bringing my sister to school." The uncle sneered. "This school costs millions. Where did your family get that kind of money?" Then came the accusation, "You still haven't given me my share of the house. According to the contract, everything should be split equally. So, where's my part?" Hansen's gaze turned sharp. "Did you even read the contract?" He reminded the man that his late father had paid off 2 million of the family's debt out of his own pocket. That debt, Hansen argued, cancelled any claim the uncle had. "No one in your branch gets a single coin more," Hansen said icily. The man's voice rose. "You little brat. You think you can cheat me? I'll go talk to your mother right now and set things straight." Hansen didn't flinch. "If you trespass onto our property, I'll have the right to shoot you." His voice was low, calm, and utterly cold. The uncle snapped. "You arrogant little mutt," he shouted, and lunged. But Hansen was faster. He stepped in, caught the man's fist effortlessly, and with a swift, fluid motion, lowered his stance and executed a perfect throw. The uncle hit the ground hard, stunned and humiliated. Standing over him, Hansen looked down with eyes like steel. "If you want to die, feel free to come to my house again." The words weren't loud, but they carried the weight of finality. Nearby, his little sister had watched everything. Her eyes were wide with fear, but behind it, there was something else. Admiration. Her brother had protected her, stood strong, and shown no fear. She clutched his hand a little tighter. The chaos wasn't over yet. The uncle's wife, trying to comfort their crying child, gently hushed him and said, "Don't be afraid. I'll take you to school now, and then I'm calling the police to have that hooligan arrested." Hansen didn't flinch. Calmly, he turned to his uncle. "You should relax," he said coldly. "Let's make decisions carefully." Then, with a practiced motion, he pulled out a tiny voice recorder. The uncle's eyes widened in horror. It didn't take long for him to realize everything had been recorded. His threats, his shouting, even his attempt to attack, captured in crisp audio. And it could all be used against him. Panic took hold. "You disgusting little rat," the man growled, lunging toward the recorder. "Delete it. Now." But Hansen didn't step back. He simply grabbed his uncle's arm and twisted, locking it in a painful hold. The man winced, gasping in pain. "We're still family," Hansen said with a chilling calm. "So let's be civil. You transfer me 2 million, and I'll consider deleting the file." The man growled, his voice shaking with fury. "You're insane. This is blackmail." Hansen didn't even blink. He twisted harder, the pressure making the man's face go red. "Do it." A few moments later, Hansen's phone buzzed. "Transfer confirmed, 2,000,000 credits." Hansen smiled, cool and satisfied. "See? That wasn't so hard." He leaned in closer. "Of course, I'll delete the recording if I feel like it. And don't come near my house again unless you want trouble." He released the man's arm and turned away. His uncle sat on the ground, clutching his arm and muttering curses under his breath. The humiliation was eating him alive. Once Hansen and his sister were out of earshot, the man exploded. "Vile bastard," he screamed. "When did that weak little brat become so twisted?" The bitterness in his voice was unmistakable. Hansen, meanwhile, was quiet. The encounter had left a heavy weight on him, not because of the fight, but because his little sister had seen it all. She walked beside him in silence, her voice barely audible. Hansen's chest tightened. "She's scared." He blamed himself. The violence, the yelling, none of that belonged in her world. Not at her age. And certainly not from him. He made a silent vow he would never use violence in front of her again. Not unless there was no other choice. She deserved peace, not a front-row seat to family hatred. Later that day, Hansen arrived at the Star River Physical Training Center. He'd been working hard on his icebone technique, and now he wanted to see the results for himself. He signed up for the test, quietly determined. Overhead, loudspeakers blared with names and scores. Not a single participant had managed to reach the required combat rating in under 20 seconds. Then, Hansen's name was called. Not bad, he thought. But next time, I'll do better. I need to hit level 2. His ambition was clear. He wanted to become the captain of a starship, and that required excellence in both skill and strength. Hansen had deliberately waited until the test room was nearly empty. But just as he was about to enter, he realized someone else had beaten him to the capsule. The doors were sealed. Curious, he walked over to the observation screen to see who it was. What he saw made his eyes narrow in surprise. Inside the training capsule, a participant was unleashing devastating attacks using a bee soul, a rare technique where ones will bonded with the power of a creature. The robots inside the simulation were being shattered one after another. Robots charged. He tore through their cores with a single blow. With each step forward, his strikes grew fiercer, power and fury combining in perfect rhythm. The training capsule echoed with the metallic wail of broken machines. Hansen surged forward. He wasn't just participating, he was dominating. He wasn't done yet. Back at the physical training center, a stunned young man stared at the results on the screen. 10 seconds. That's impossible. He blinked again, trying to process what he'd just witnessed. In disbelief, he whispered, he cleared the test in just 10 seconds. Outside the center, word spread fast. Crowds had gathered at the entrance, buzzing with excitement. Did you hear? Someone said. A newbie destroyed all the robots in only 10 seconds. No way, that armor, wasn't that the money guy's beast gear? Another chimed in. Inside, many recognized the armor. It wasn't just any suit, it belonged to someone with deep resources. Whispers followed, all wondering the same thing, who was this masked newcomer? Far from the commotion, in a luxurious villa by the sea, a conversation was already underway. Hey, come take a look at this, a voice called out. A young man entered the room, having just finished dressing for class. What's the matter? His friend pointed at a glowing holographic screen. A new record just dropped. Some random guy completed the physical test in 10 seconds flat. No face on the camera, he added, but judging from his performance, he's got mastery of ultranuclear gene techniques and can use beast souls too. The young man frowned. That means he might max out every gene, except maybe the divine one. All right, the friend sighed. Enough with the breakdown. Just tell me, who is he? His tone turned anxious. If this guy's for real, he could stop me from making it to the second refuge of the gods. I need a spot among the 10 sons of God. The other man nodded. He's definitely not ordinary. My guess? Military background. Could be, his friend replied. But we need to find out everything we can, fast. His expression grew serious. A guy like that could shake the entire shelter. And I need to know who I'm up against. Meanwhile, Hansen was back at the transfer station, summoned only days after his short departure. Swen was already waiting. You're mine now, she told him bluntly. I need to know where you are at all times. Hansen raised his hands. I wasn't trying to hide. I just went back to the Star River. She didn't care for explanations. No excuses. Report to the training center. You're officially joining the shooting team, starting today. She turned to leave but stopped and glanced back sharply. And remember, you're only part of this group because I brought you in. Hansen watched her go. Her words echoed in his mind. The Son of God is tied to the Star Group. Rumors swirled around that name. And Hansen had more than curiosity, his father's death was somehow connected to them. Despite her sharp tone, he bowed his head respectfully. Thank you for trusting me. You surprisingly kind. As he followed an escort officer down the corridor, Hansen couldn't help but wonder. Why did she choose to protect me? Does she like me? They arrived at a door. The officer pushed it open. You're expected inside. Hansen entered the room. There stood a striking woman, powerful and elegant. She eyed him carefully. I'm Hansen. Schwen told me to report here. She stared at him in silence, then asked, Name? Hansen. Her eyes narrowed. You're 10 seconds late. He fumbled for words. I didn't mean to be late. Swen gave me instructions and she cut him off coldly. No more excuses. If you're going to be in my unit, you'll learn discipline. She handed him a form. Fill this out. Now. As Hansen sat and scribbled answers, the woman leaned in close. Her imposing figure and confident air distracted him a lot. It was hard to focus. What's with this hostility? He thought. He finally handed her the form. You're expected in the training room tomorrow. 6 sharp. No delays. Just then, a soft beep echoed through the room. A holographic projection formed in the air. It was Schwen. Both of you, report to my office. Immediately. They arrived at Schwen's office. On the large screen behind her, a video played in silence. It was the training test. Hansen's test. Robots exploding. Beast armor glinting. 10 seconds. The internet had exploded with reactions. Hansen's jaw tightened. How did this even get online? He stood there, watching himself tear through combat bots on screen, his secret now broadcast to the world. And he knew there was no going back. Back in the training center, a group of girls crowded around a screen, their eyes wide with awe. That has to be the Money Brother, right? One of them whispered. Did you see the way he moved? That's ultra-nuclear technique for sure, another replied, still stunned by the speed and precision shown in the video. They couldn't believe what they had witnessed. But did anyone see his face? One of them asked. No one had. The footage was impressive, but the identity of the mysterious fighter remained hidden. Meanwhile, Hansen sat in silence, trying to calm his nerves. At first, fear gripped him, the video's out. But then, relief washed over him. They don't know it's me. Zwan, one of the women discussing the video, narrowed her eyes. This proves it. Not only does the Money Brother possess divine-grade armor, but he's also mastered ultra-nuclear techniques, she said, more to herself than anyone else. She was determined to find him. If he was at the fitness testing center, then he must have been close by. We'll find him. She speculated that he must be from a distant district, someone extraordinary like that couldn't have come from the Star River area, where talents were rare. We have to recruit him, she said firmly. If we do, we won't need the Son of God to help us hunt divine-level creatures. Hansen quietly observed. He could see it clearly now, Zwan wasn't just chasing talent. She was aiming to change the social order of the shelter. He chuckled lightly, trying to sound casual. I heard the Money Brother is a lone wolf. It won't be easy to rope him into any group. Zwan gave him a playful but intense look, resting her hand on his shoulder. Oh, don't worry, she said, eyes gleaming. We have ways of persuading men. Hansen swallowed hard. He couldn't deny it. Zwan, like Yang, was dangerously beautiful, confident, and utterly persuasive. He looked between them both. They've gone insane, he thought. Later, Hansen returned to his quarters. He glanced toward a large reinforced cage in the corner of the room. Inside was a beast, restrained but powerful, and evolving. Its aura was growing more intense each day. Just a few more days, Hansen thought. Then it will reach the divine level. The next morning, Hansen arrived at the rifle group's training camp. Rows of shooters trained relentlessly at automated stations, firing shot after shot. Among the crowd, Hansen suddenly spotted a familiar face. Xiao? The shooter paused, turned, and froze in confusion. Wait. How do you know my name? Hansen blinked. His cover was slipping. Everyone knows you, he bluffed smoothly. You're associated with the legendary Money Brother. Xiao beamed with pride. Huh? Yeah, I guess word's getting around. But trust me, training here isn't easy. He leaned closer, voice dropping. You better watch out. The leader of the shooting group is a sadist. And a pervert. Hansen sighed. I've already had the pleasure of meeting her. Before they could say more, a loud voice cut through the air like a whip. What are you two doing just standing around? Yang Man approached, her eyes glowing an intense red, filled with irritation. Both young men froze. Her presence was overwhelming. Her voice was cold steel. You're distracting each other from training. That means punishment. Her sentence was harsh. Xiao, 1,000 target hits. With a level 7 bow. Don't stop until it's done. Both boys looked horrified. Yang's eyes narrowed. Break the rules, and you'll regret it more than you can imagine. Xiao whispered in despair. There's no way I can do that. I just reached level 7. Even drawing that bow will drain me. Hansen put a hand on his friend's shoulder. No time to complain. Let's get started. Xiao sighed heavily. The elder will probably assign someone to watch us. There's no escape. Hansen nodded. Exactly. We have to train anyway. Might as well push through. He looked his friend in the eye. This is the kind of thing men are supposed to endure. He knew how tough it would be. Xiao's strength had only just broken into level 7. It wasn't just the number of hits, it was whether he could even last that long. As they trained, they overheard a group of older disciples talking nearby. Tomorrow morning, we're heading out to hunt a creature with divine blood. Yeah, another said. The Son of God himself invited the best marksman to join the mission. The words echoed in Hansen's ears. The Son of God, again. That name kept coming up. And with it, the shadow of the mysterious organization connected to his father's death loomed ever larger. Hansen kept his expression calm, but inside, he absorbed every detail about the upcoming hunt. Just then, an instructor strode over, his voice sharp and commanding. Enough chatting. Get back to training, now. Without hesitation, Shiro reached into his pocket and handed the instructor a wad of money. Please, put in a good word for me. I want to join the hunt. To Shiro's surprise, the instructor brusquely shoved the money away. Don't think I'd take a bribe from a bad shooter like you, he sneered. Turning to Hansen, the instructor's tone grew harsher. And you, don't slack off. Train harder. Before walking off, he glared at them both. This unit isn't a place for scum. Remember, 1,000 hits on the target, or you'll regret it. Hansen watched him leave and thought, no point slacking here. The rules are brutal. Shiro muttered, what's wrong with that guy today? He never refused bribes before. Hansen shrugged, but Shiro's words hung in the air. The instructor doesn't like you. Watch yourself. If he's angry, it could get dangerous. Shiro warned him not to be too honest with the instructor, explaining that the man was obsessed with Yang and might be acting out because of her. Hansen felt his mind swirl with too much new information. Deciding to clear his head, he focused back on training. The arrows won't shoot themselves. He told Shiro, we'll definitely go hunting tomorrow. Then, with surprising ease, Hansen drew his bow and sent an arrow flying from 150 meters straight to the target. Even Shiro was stunned. That kind of accuracy was rare, especially for a beginner. Hansen knew the secret. The basics of archery were easy to pick up, but persistence made the difference. One after another, Hansen hit the bullseye 40 times in a row. Yang, watching nearby, couldn't hide her surprise. He's got real talent, she muttered. Older students passing by nodded approvingly. He shoots fast and steady, way beyond a beginner's skill. They noticed Hansen never changed his stance and always shot from the same spot. Clearly, he'd been practicing in secret. But the instructor watched silently from the sidelines, his expression unreadable. Unlike the others, he wasn't impressed. People like him don't last long at the top, he thought coldly. Hansen urged Shiro, don't stand there. Keep training. Hard work is the only way to get results. Shiro pulled back his bowstring, thoughts racing. If this guy can lead tomorrow's hunt, he'll be my hero. Hansen smiled mysteriously. Trust me. We'll succeed, I have a plan. Yang Man observed closely, nodding to herself. Shron had made a good call. Hansen was capable, and on pace to finish the task before midnight. But Yang wondered if Hansen could work well with others without conflict, a vital trait for team hunts. Exhausted, Shiro finally collapsed to the floor. Together, they had shot over 5,000 arrows, a brutal challenge that tested every ounce of their stamina. Most of those hits belonged to Hansen, who had become the driving force behind their success. Shiro looked at him with sincere gratitude. Without you, I'd never have made it. You're my idol now. Despite the triumph, Hansen's mind churned with worry about the hunt ahead. What kind of divine blood creatures will the Divine Sun Squad be after? He asked. Shiro shrugged. No problem. I've already learned everything there is to know today. In this world, if you've got money, there's no secret you can't buy. He lowered his voice. Our target tomorrow? A flying creature with divine blood. That sent a chill through Hansen. Flying beasts were notoriously fast and agile, hard to catch, even for the best marksman. Shiro smiled wryly. There aren't many in the steel armor hideout who can shoot a bow well. Hansen's resolve hardened. Tomorrow will be the real test. The Son of God had no choice but to ask for help from Hansen and the others to improve his chances of success in the hunt. Hansen pondered how he could possibly defeat the flying creature, knowing that divine blood-flying monsters were incredibly powerful, and that ordinary arrows wouldn't even scratch them. Back in his room, Hansen set out to find a special kind of arrow, one containing Z steel. Z steel was no ordinary metal. It was a new alloy far stronger and more elastic than regular steel. Even adding a tiny fraction of Z steel to a weapon's material would dramatically boost its performance. The problem was the official market prices were astronomical, and Hansen couldn't afford them. So, he had to search for alternative sources. He knew the Black Knight's weapons contained only about 0.5% Z steel, and bowstrings had barely reached 1%. Luckily, Hansen discovered a seller offering arrows with more than 1% Z steel, and at a reasonable price, perfect for him. The seller arranged to meet Hansen in a strange location, an abandoned alley in the red light district. The setting immediately made Hansen suspicious. During negotiations, the atmosphere was tense and mysterious. Hansen even offered to handle the transaction remotely and have the arrows mailed to him, but the seller insisted on a personal meeting. At the meeting spot, Hansen saw a stranger waving at him, whom he assumed was the seller. The man led him into a deserted alley and straightforwardly asked if Hansen really intended to buy the rare arrow he was offering. The seller proudly presented the arrow, explaining it was handmade, and invited Hansen to inspect the quality before paying. Hansen picked it up and immediately noticed the arrow's perfect center of gravity, a sign of a true craftsman's skill. To test the arrow's strength, Hansen pulled out a knife from the cutting steel series and asked permission to strike the arrow with it. The seller, confident in his work, said Hansen could test the arrow as much as he wanted. Hansen struck the arrow several times with the knife. While the knife's blade quickly got nicks and scratches, the arrow's surface remained flawless. This proved the arrow contained at least 1% Z steel. Satisfied, Hansen told the seller the arrow was excellent and that he was ready to buy. The seller explained that his arrows were crafted from bearings taken from a Star-class battleship, assuring Hansen he wasn't trying to cheat him. He stressed that the Z steel content exceeded 1% and that his craftsmanship far surpassed anything machines could produce. At first, Hansen was skeptical about the offer, but after testing the arrow's strength, he relaxed and began to trust the seller. The man pocketed the money and said he was glad to cooperate, adding that Hansen could contact him anytime if needed. The next morning, a large group of hunters gathered near the gates of the refuge of the gods, preparing for a crucial mission. Tien reported to the Son of God that among those assembled was a familiar troublemaker, the same guy who regularly stirred up problems around them. Xuan, accompanied by his team, approaches the main entrance of the vault, drawing the attention of all the hunters gathered. The Son of God greets Xuan confidently, declaring that they will defeat the divine creature with a single blow. Xuan promises that her shooting group will perform at their best. Suddenly, Tianang interrupts Hansen with a rude question, asking why the rifle team accept someone like him and calling him a freak. Xuan quickly steps in, reminding Tianang that she had already told Hansen he was part of her group, and that Tianang should remember that. The Son of God notices the tension rising and tells Tianang to stop embarrassing Hansen. Reluctantly, Tianang backs down but mutters a quiet, contemptuous remark, calling Hansen trash hiding behind a woman. Xiao watches warily, concerned that Tianang might cause trouble. Hansen, unfazed, says it doesn't bother him since Tianang is all bark and no bite. Meanwhile, the lookout hunters report that they have reached the destination and are ready. Xuan and her team take their positions at the mountain's base, prepared to track and flush out the creature according to the Son of God's plan. Qinhuan proudly presents a special gift to Xuan's shooting team, tight cases filled with arrows. The Son of God orders 100 arrows, each containing 1% Z steel, to be distributed to every shooter. Then, pointing at Hansen with obvious hostility, he declares that Hansen will receive none. Hansen stays calm, knowing his secret identity as the money brother gives him an unseen advantage. Yangman questions the Son of God's decision, reminding him Hansen is part of the shooting team. Qinhuan arrogantly replies that he gives the arrows for free and can choose who gets them. Yangman reluctantly accepts since the Son of God is in charge. She orders her subordinate to pick the 5 best test participants and give each 20 arrows, confident that their arrows are just as good as the star arrows. Yangman suspects the Son of God holds a grudge against Hansen and is deliberately ignoring him. She feels furious, almost wanting to beat him. Senior warriors give instructions to all hunters, prioritizing elite fighters for key ambush spots. Tianang contemptuously points to Hansen and Xiao, telling them they are not elite and must position themselves near a boulder far from the main spots. Hansen tells Xiao to ignore the insult and follow orders to avoid trouble. Xiao is furious, feeling deliberately humiliated and convinced the Son of God is sabotaging them by withholding the star arrows from Hansen. Hansen isn't surprised. He believes he's long been a thorn in the Son of God's side, and this is just more proof. When Xiao asks why he isn't angry, Hansen admits he is but chooses to stay calm and collected. He knows that to gain respect from the senior players, he must speak their language, force. He's determined to kill the divine creature and claim its soul. Xiao doubts this is possible. He points out that the Son of God's people on the opposite cliff will shoot the creature first. Examining his arrows carefully, Xiao sadly concludes that regular weapons won't harm such a powerful monster. Suddenly, a loud and terrifying scream echoed through the mountains, instantly sharpening the focus of the young hunters. The hunt for the powerful creature had begun. The Divine Sun's team had successfully lured out the beast, a massive purple dragon known as a perp. Yangman took command, instructing her archers to hold their fire until she gave the signal, ensuring maximum impact. The archers readied their bows, drew their arrows, and held their breath in tense anticipation. When Yangman finally ordered the volley, dozens of arrows shot through the air toward the purple dragon. But the creature's thick, powerful scales deflected most of the arrows effortlessly. A few struck, but caused no serious damage. Xiao quickly realized the star arrows were surprisingly ineffective, questioning their supposed quality. Hansen reached into his quiver and pulled out one of his star arrows, knowing that a shot had to be perfect, hitting the dragon's eye or it would be wasted. Carefully, he drew back his bowstring and aimed. Arrows made with over 1% Z steel should be able to pierce the dragon's defenses. Xiao noticed the Divine Sun's men were only making a feint attack to bait the dragon out and distract it for a decisive strike. Then, the Son of God leapt into the air, drew a star arrow, and prepared to fire the final blow he believed would end the battle. Shinsuan was confident this arrow would bring him glory. He let loose the shot, and the arrow hit the dragon, causing severe damage that left the beast unable to fight back. In pain, the purple dragon opened its massive jaws and released a roar so fierce it sent chills through even the most hardened warriors. Hansen, however, held back. He felt the time wasn't right yet, the dragon's defenses were still too strong, and he needed to wait for a better moment. The hunters continued firing volley after volley, gradually wearing down the beast's strength. Then Yangman summoned the dragon soul into the form of a glowing, energy-charged arrow and bow. Refusing to let the Divine Sun claim victory, she aimed carefully and released the energy arrow. It struck with devastating force, igniting powerful fiery explosions across the dragon's body. The beast screamed in agony, its massive form engulfed in flames, but it still survived, its remarkable regenerative ability kicking in. At this moment, the Son of God rode a trained monster, chasing after the purple dragon and ordering hunters to shoot its wings to prevent it from escaping. The dragon, seeing the hunters as a mortal threat, tried to flee to a nearby mountain ledge to hide and recover. Hansen sprinted after the purple dragon along the treacherous mountain trails, frustrated by his lack of gear and mount like the others. He knew they needed to capture the monster first. Xiao doubted their chances, fearing injuries amid the difficult terrain. Suddenly, they spotted Xuan deftly chasing the dragon, leaping from ledge to ledge on her mount with astonishing agility and confidence. Flying overhead, Xuan extended her hand toward Hansen, signaling for him to join her. Without hesitation, Hansen leapt up and grabbed her hand midair. Moments later, he was behind her on the tamed monster, and they raced after the purple dragon together. Xiao, left behind, reached out with a pitiful look, silently begging to be taken along. Hansen, now seated close behind Xuan, couldn't help but notice her slim waist. Xuan immediately noticed his distracted gaze and sharply ordered him to focus, warning him not to let his hands wander. She explained she only brought him along because her assistant vouched for his excellent marksmanship, he could be valuable in battle. As the chase continued, Hansen thought about how useful it would be to have a flying mount for navigating the rugged mountains. Meanwhile, Kinsuan saw Xuan and Hansen together. Irritated and jealous, the Son of God's resentment grew deeper, seeing Hansen close to the girl. Yang told Xuan that she had arrived just in time, the purple dragon had just flown to the very top of the mountain. Even the arrows imbued with the beast's soul hadn't been able to cause it serious harm. She asked what their next move should be. Xuan believed they had two options, either climb to the dragon's summit and try to kill it there or find a way to drive it down. Otherwise, once it fully healed, their chances of winning would be zero. Qinsuan ordered his men to gather and start the climb, intending to force the purple dragon to descend, while he himself planned to wait below to deliver the final blow. The hunters approached a steep cliff and quickly realized the mountain looked nearly impossible to scale. The Son of God, irritated by their hesitation, abruptly commanded them to start climbing immediately. He added that anyone who reached the top would receive an extra share of the purple dragon meat as a reward. The hunters exchanged looks, seeing this as a prime opportunity not only to secure a large piece of dragon meat but also to increase their own genetic strength. Hansen observed that the Son of God's tactics remained the same, risking his people's lives to achieve his own goals. Xuan was confident the climb was doable and believed the chance for greater rewards justified the effort. Noticing Xuan's eagerness, the Son of God snapped at her, saying she had no reason to go upstairs, her place was below, leading the subordinate hunters. Xuan disliked the idea, preferring to actively fight rather than wait on the sidelines. Then, unexpectedly, the Son of God shoved Hansen sharply on the shoulder and demanded to know why he hadn't started climbing yet. He ordered Hansen to follow Xuan immediately. The two young men exchanged angry, silent glances. Hansen realized the Son of God was deliberately setting obstacles for him. He clearly had some hidden plan that could endanger Hansen's life. Meanwhile, the hunters found strong vines and began their careful ascent, navigating the steep ledges as the purple dragon slowly regained its strength atop the mountain. Xuan led the way with confidence, showing impressive physical fitness and unyielding determination. The massive purple dragon spotted the hunters approaching, spread its enormous wings, and let out a loud, menacing cry that echoed through the mountains. As the first group reached the summit, the dragon launched a fierce counterattack, using its powerful wings and claws to push back the hunters. Xuan quickly assessed the situation and realized that the hunters couldn't defeat such a colossal beast in an open fight. She ordered her archers to take cover and attack from a safe distance. The shooters promptly found shelter behind rocks and crevices, ready to open fire on her command. Despite its exhaustion and numerous wounds, the purple dragon fought fiercely, waving its tail and smashing the archers' shelters to pieces. Hansen watched closely and saw that the dragon was seriously weakened. He decided the time had come for a decisive shot that would finish the monster once and for all. At that moment, the Son of God appeared nearby. He activated the spirit of the beast, and a massive energy field instantly formed behind him, taking the shape of a terrifying monster. Hansen hated the Divine Son's presence, knowing he could ruin his entire plan. The beast spirit lunged at Hansen and struck him with a powerful blow, stopping the young man from taking his final shot. The strike sent Hansen flying far to the side, and he plunged toward the abyss. At the last second, he grabbed hold of a rope. The rope swung violently, and Hansen's body slammed against the cold, steep rock face with a loud thud. He cried out in pain and cursed the Divine Son fiercely. Fortunately, Hansen's physical conditioning was enough to survive the blow without breaking any bones. Determined, Hansen climbed back up, looked around, and called the Son of God a bastard for using the beast soul in a clear attempt to kill the purple dragon. Meanwhile, the monster spirit summoned by the Divine Son swiftly approached the wounded purple dragon, ready to deliver the finishing blow. Hansen observed how cleverly the Divine Son used this tactic. His assistant had also employed the beast soul to complete the dragon's encirclement. Hansen realized his own monster spirit, called Bloody Killer, was powerless at this moment, so he decided to wait for a better opportunity. The spirit of the monster, taking the form of a massive lion, leapt forward and sank its enormous fangs into the dragon's body, attempting to cripple its ability to fight back. At the same time, the Tanyang monster spirit, shaped like a giant gorilla, struck the dragon's head with a powerful blow, delivering a final coordinated attack. Despite this, the purple dragon let out a piercing roar, rose to its feet, and violently threw the attacking spirits aside, showing it still had strength left. Seizing the moment, Xuan drew her combat dagger and charged in, convinced the dragon was already too weakened to resist. The Divine Son, confident in his quick victory, ordered his men to maintain the pressure and continue their assault until the dragon was destroyed. The young hunters gritted their teeth and simultaneously plunged their weapons deep into the dragon's massive flesh. Overwhelmed by unbearable pain, the dragon spread its wings and released a deafening cry that shook the surrounding area. A forceful wing strike blasted the attackers away in all directions. Xuan crashed into the nearest rock with full force. Hansen, watching closely, was filled with concern for her after such a hard impact. Gathering its remaining strength, the purple dragon soared into the air and landed on a nearby cliff. Panic swept through the hunters. They feared that if the monster gained height, their chance to kill it would vanish. Without hesitation, Hansen sprinted after the dragon. Voices rose from the senior hunters, demanding that the monster be prevented from escaping. Realizing the decisive moment had arrived, Hansen slowly reached for his quiver and drew an arrow forged from Z metal, capable of piercing even the toughest foes. Just then, the divine son, unwilling to lose his prize, summoned the beast spirit again, which took the shape of a massive bow. He fired an energy arrow directly at the purple dragon. Hansen watched as the divine son's energy beam sped forward, but his own confidence grew. The time was right. He released his bowstring, sending his Z-metal arrow hurtling through the air with a sharp whistle. The arrow raced toward the target, colliding mid-air with the divine son's energy shot. Then, overtaking it, Hansen's arrow surged ahead, striking the purple dragon first. To an outside observer, it seemed both arrows hit simultaneously, but in truth, Hansen's shot was faster. The dragon let out a final, earth-shaking roar before its massive body crashed onto the mountain plateau, silencing the hunters in stunned confusion. The hunters, along with the divine son, expressed clear irritation, blaming Hansen and calling him a fool, since it was his arrow that ended the hunt. Xuan, still recovering from her fall, looked at Hansen in disbelief, wondering how he had managed to defeat such a formidable creature. The divine son, furious, grabbed Hansen's clothes and demanded to know if he had obtained the blood beast soul, his voice harsh and commanding. Hansen calmly replied that, of course, he would have liked to claim such a valuable trophy, but regrettably, this time luck was not on his side, and he did not receive any souls. Xuan, eyeing Hansen with suspicion, pressed him again about the purple dragon soul, insisting he tell the truth. She reminded him that, according to accepted rules, the soul of the beast belongs to whoever deals the fatal blow. Hansen said he felt no change within himself and was quite certain he had not gained the dragon soul.